We're just going to count that as a glitch.
Yeah, let's see if his goes better.
Yeah, we're gonna count that as a glitch.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying something a little bit new today, Jason. Instead of putting the camera at an angle, I'm putting it straight on, so it helps with you guys, but with me, there's a terrible glare off of it. So um, I got to find a good spot in my house to actually, if I keep growing, then build an actual place that I can have a dedicated room instead of just. My daughter was out in college, so I was using her room for a while, but now that she's back, she's got her room back, so I'm kind of doing it in my room. So I'm working on it, but until then, it's kind of wonky and all over the place. But I would like to have the setup so instead of looking at the side of my head all the time, I'm able to look straight forward. So, but it is giving me a terrible glare. Anyway, guys, if you're coming in, make sure to hit that heart. Make sure to share. It's getting me pushed out in the algorithm. And hopefully we can spread the gospel today, defeat this outrageous lie of evolution, let people know that the flood was real and God owns this planet and he has the authority and right to judge it if he wants to, and then warn them that a second judgment is coming. That's what we're going to do. Today, hopefully we'll be able to do some 2 Peter. It says in the Bible that in the end times they will be willingly ignorant of three things. They will be willingly ignorant of the world that was created, willingly ignorant of the flood, and they will be willingly ignorant of the coming judgment. That's what the Bible says. That's my scripture. So hopefully we can help some people out today. Did the flood cover the earth? Yes, sir. It covered the entirety of the whole earth. If you disagree with that, then I encourage people to step up and we'll have a conversation. Yet the book of Genesis obviously tells us that the flood covered the whole earth. Yeah, water come from below. That's where the majority of the water come from. It rained for 40 days and for 40 nights, and indeed it says the windows of the heavens were opened, but the majority of the water come from the fountains of the deep. We know this because it only rained for 40 days and for 40 nights, but the water continued to rise for over 150 days. So then clearly that lets us know that the majority of the water actually came from the fountains of the deep. When was the flood? About 6,000? I would say about 4,500 years ago, according to the lineages in the Bible. So about 4,500 years ago. Appreciate it. Thank you, Blaze. Appreciate the compliments. So the water rose from the cracks, assume filled the oceans first. Well, we believe that it was so much pressure that I personally believe this is where the windows of heaven were opened up. This right here is an illustration of a wave, obviously. Right, this is just a wave. But I want you to imagine that there's actually a crack on the ocean floor and the water shoots up because the Bible says that the water was founded, or excuse me, the land was founded on the water. So this would cause a lot of pressure. So when the fountains of the deep broke open, this would cause the water to shoot out extremely violently. And it would cause it to go into the atmosphere and then come back down as rain. And until the water could get enough over it to prevent the pressure from spraying out of it, obviously, then it would rain for 40 days and for 40 nights. I think that's the majority, in my opinion, where the rain come from. A couple of things to support that theory is there is the side of the moon that faces us has a lot of craters in it. on the side of the moon that faces us. And our moon is tidal locked. So it's always facing us. So how did it get craters on the side that faces us? If something is passing the moon, then the Earth's gravity is better than the moon's gravity, so it should continue to go past the moon onto Earth. But this would imply something went past the moon, turned around, and then come back and hit it face on. So I would imagine that whatever the craters are from the moon on the side that faces us came from Earth. And I think this would fit the theory. If water shot out enough to go into space, obviously that water would become ice, and then ice would pepper it and create craters. Couldn't prove it. Wouldn't be something I would be willing to argue about, but I think that Saturn's rings are also extremely white. So Saturn's rings, they say, can't be millions or billions of years old because they're too white, meaning that space accumulates what they call space dust. And Saturn's ice rings are too white. If they're millions or billions of years old, then they should have enough accumulation of space dirt on the rings that they should not be as white as they are. So I think personally that the rings that got around Saturn was actually escaped water from Earth. I think that water shot out into space. I think this sideswiped Mars and gave Mars the crater that it has, or the Grand Canyon, if you will. There's like a Grand Canyon on Mars. If the water was going by, then it would go in, it could sideswipe it. And this could create a Mars-like crater, like we see on Mars. The Grand Canyon type crater that we see on Mars. And then I think the rest of it went out and got captured by Saturn, and that's where it become the rings around it. Again, couldn't prove that. It's not something I would be willing to debate anybody on, but that's just my personal belief system. I think that's where I see the evidence lining up at. I also think this is one of the reasons they find amino acids on asteroids. Because I think the asteroids probably were Earth rocks that got blown out into outer space when the fountains of the deep broke open. They've already got the chemical makeups that the Earth already has, and then we find it later and go, wow, there's amino acids everywhere. Couldn't prove that either, but there we go. Now, conjecture is not enough, but that's why I'm waiting until I get some opponents. So if you I'm just answering questions until somebody comes on stage and asks me something different. So if you got a refutation or an argument that you'd like to have, then we can see how that goes for you. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to be a good steward and answer the questions. Well, Lenny, if you think that I can't contend with the science, then step on stage and try to make me look stupid. I said I wouldn't debate that. The flood, I'll debate that. I don't care if the water escaped and went out into the solar system or not. But the evidence for the flood being real, I'll debate you on that any day of the week. There's more than enough evidence for me to absolutely demolish you in a debate as far as is there evidence for the flood. Pimp, you're back.
Hello. Oh, was that you before?
Yeah, are you the one that said you were a biologist? Or was that a different guy?
It must have been someone else. Weird.
I remember the name though. What's up?
I think I might have been here before, but I
You
never
were.
got to talk. Maybe that was it.
You
So
never got to talk? Is that what you said?
I did. I think someone else was talking or something, or you were talking. So I had to go or something.
Okay, what you got, brother?
You want me to verify my age for TikTok? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. How old are you?
I am 30. All right.
Cool.
TikTok knows. All right.
All right, what you got?
I was gonna say, you know, on the topic of like the flood, right? And you know what I don't get about all these scientists, right? I'm an educated man, so I was a math major in college, right? So
Okay.
I've took a couple of science courses and whatnot around intelligent people, whatnot, professors, and you know all this knowledge, so-called knowledge, right? but I mean, they still can't. They still can't solve the one question, right? Like, why is Earth like pretty much the only place with intelligent life? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Don't you find that a little suspicious?
No, I think if it's the Bible, right?
Right?
We're made in God's image. If they're
Right?
aliens, then you're going to have to say what image are they made in?
Right? Because like all these, I think all that alien stuff is a big hoax. I think that's a big hoax. I think it's gonna be holograms in the sky when it does happen. Because I've heard a lot of tinfoil hat theories that they're gonna try to push a one world religion and a one world currency. But just by example, look here in America, they pretty much got us in a cage, and they blame they accuse of Chinese people of doing a lot of things, but now they got flock cameras, so they're just slowly becoming what they hate. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna be
Sure.
tracking us everywhere. They already feed us goy slop, right? Like, it's getting really out of hand. We're like slowly. It's like they bamboozled us with this glorious, nice little honeypot, right? They honeypotted us into wanting to be here, right? It's like it's like they tricked the whole globe into wanting to come to America, right? They made it seem all nice and fancy, but then they're like, all right, we got everyone here already. All right, time to turn the table. Time to go into motion.
All right, brother. Do you have you got something on the topic you'd like to bring up? I'm trying to fix this light because this thing is irritating
um,
me.
on the flood? I'm pretty sure we did get blood flooded. I don't see why not. A lot of things anything is possible, right? Shit. Right now, everything's so hot. Why wouldn't it have been at one point so wet?
Okay. Well, all right. Well, you agree with me? The flood was worldwide.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Evolution is false.
definitely. I mean, another thing is right. Isn't like I think it was like more than 70% of the world is water, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's making sense, right? Like, I mean, the majority of it is flooded, essentially, right? Like, why wouldn't everything have been flooded to begin with, right?
Sure. All right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you agreeing with me. Thanks for coming, man.
Right. That's it.
All right, man. God bless. Critical. I can't see your name. What's your? Oh, critical
Crit-
thinking. What's up, dude?
Critically thinking veteran. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Hope you are.
Oh yeah. I've done a lot of thinking, and God revealed something to me last year as more of like a set of events to allow me to understand exactly what happened back then. And I think you're absolutely going to be on the money. I think that the very basic idea of evolution is flawed only because he can't, it's like you can make a dog from a wolf, but you can't make a wolf from a dog, right? So we obviously live in a decaying world, you know. So, you could twist that around to say that there's an evolution, but we both know that that's not the case. I know you're looking too also for people to disagree with you, so you know, at the
Yeah.
point where you get that, you let me know, brother. I step out, but so long as you're willing to listen, I'll tell you what God revealed to me.
Yeah, as long as it don't go off in like some kind of weird something or another, I don't mind.
Well, no, I don't think that it does. What I'm going to try to do is stick more to like the geology of the planet, because I think most of us agree that there was one supercontinent to begin with, right? The
I
scientific
don't.
Pangea.
I don't
but
know. Maybe.
I
Yeah,
believe
maybe.
that
I
the
don't know.
Bible refers to it specifically as Eden, and it refers to the garden that was in Eden, right?
Well, we don't know if that's the landmass, but there was a Garden of Eden. But I'm with you so far.
So that's kind of how I read it and see it. And then at the point where God in Genesis saw that the world was becoming too violent, that's when he started creating the Atlantic Ocean. And it said specifically in there that the fountains of the great deep were opened, and then the floodgates of heaven were let loose. So at the point where we're creating the Atlantic Ocean and the continents are separating, And then you look down there at the tip of South America and Antarctica where it looks kind of like a serpent's head, right? I think that that's where the dam broke after the ocean bed was created. Then the water started rushing in and then covered the rest of the planet, right? The Atlantic Ocean bed with the water. Obviously, it's hot. It's going to steam up, because the water's going to flash over into steam. But there's such a volume of water that it continues to wash over the continents, which is what killed the dinosaurs and buries them out in those beds out in Montana and other places. So the flashing of the water over into steam covers the whole planet with humidity, right, all over the place, because there's so much heat that has to get dispersed, and that ends up causing the refrigeration effect of an ice age, because hot water freezes freezes faster than cold water. So at the poles, you start flashing over the ice age that then covers the planet at the poles, and that's what allows for the dissipation of the heat of the creating of the ocean bed. And then, of course, obviously Noah's floating around on the ark, just like probably sweating on some days and maybe other, it wasn't so bad, but it just definitely would not have been a good time for sure. But that's kind of how I ended up seeing it. And that's what I feel like God revealed to me. And it explains all of the layers that they say is in the fossil record. To me, it's a flood record. That's why you find sea life in every layer of it. And that's also why you find the bigger animals buried at the bottom. So,
all right, yeah, that's certainly interesting. I haven't heard that before, but that is interesting. I take the flood model, obviously, that the geologic column it's called hydrologic sorting. So that happened in the flood naturally. So I mean, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you, and maybe we get a chance to talk again soon.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. What's up, wild man? You doing all right? Is that Carlos again?
Yeah. Hey, I've been learning the argument of motion. I was going to ask you, if you have like an atheist crashing out, and you're ready to kick him, try to let me run that argument. I'm trying to get some practice in.
Okay. What kind of argument is it?
It's St. Thomas Aquinas' argument of motion. Basically, anything actual, for example, let's say it's a cold cup of water on the table, right? It has the potential to become hot water. So if I take that cold cup and put it in a microwave, it becomes hot water. That's the equalizer, right? So basically, everything in creation has dependent actualizers, because the microwave can't independently make the water hot. It depends on electricity in the wall. Basically, in a nutshell, all this traces back to God, and He is the only one that is the first equalizer. He has no start and He has no end. Obviously.
Yeah, that's called the cosmic. That's called the cosmic argument. That's the first cause. That's the first cause uncause. I've done it plenty of times on here.
Yeah, they call it the first way in Catholicism. It's one of Aquinas' arguments.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it might be tweaked a little bit, but yeah, that's the first cause uncause. It's called the cosmological argument. Yeah, in my opinion, it's clearly undefeated to this day, because everything that we see happens because of something. So evolutionists and creationists, no matter which side of the fence you're on, if you play the regression game back to something, it had to happen because of something else. And the very first cause had to be uncaused. So it had to happen without any cause. The only thing that's reasonable that's outside of a cause could be a deity. And so evolution, natural causes cannot explain how an uncaused could happen.
Yeah, he couldn't have a passive potential. Like, he couldn't have the potential to become God. He would already have to be God in a way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. All right, guys, do me a favor and hit the heart and the share if you don't mind. I only got 2 reposts here. Let's try to get me pushed out in the algorithm. I got 60 people in here, and I appreciate it, but the shares need to match so that way I can get pushed out in the algorithm so we can have some some ops in here. I'd like for some individuals to come up and let's see if we can talk them out of this outrageous religious viewpoint of evolution. I like this guy's name already. Noah, what's up, man?
Talk about the flood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't think the flood happened.
Okay, it's so do you believe a flood happened, or you believe it's a regional flood, or do you don't believe any of it?
I think it's possible that there was a regional flood, but I don't think that the flood happened the way it was described in Genesis.
Okay, so some of the best evidences that I like to use to show that the flood happened is hydrologic sorting, polystratofossils, dinosaur bone beds, soft tissue, and DNA fragments found in dinosaurs. I think this is the strongest evidence to support the flood model that Genesis tells.
Okay, how do those things support the flood?
Sure, you know what, the geologic column, when you look at the side imagine you're at the Grand Canyon, you look at the side of the wall and you see all of those different layers, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, that happens in water. That's called hydrologic sorting. Anytime you have water flowing and sediment getting set down, you can buy the little toy at Walmart. I need to buy it so that I can actually show people. And you flip it upside down and then the sand settles out, and it always settles out into like little mountain layers and stuff like that. Well, if you put oil in it, it only allows it to come out in one spot, and then it allows it to make like little mountains and hills and stuff inside your toy. Again, that's called hydrologic sorting, and that happens in water. And so the fact that we see this layering all over the planet literally shows that there was a worldwide flood. Now, the next bit of evidence that I was going to give is called the polystrate fossils. So the geologic column would say that the Grand Canyon, those layers that you see in the side of it, they would say that it took millions and millions of years for the layers to lay down. So these layers are millions of years apart from each other. The problem that they have, though, is what we call polystrate fossils. They're usually trees, not always, but mostly. They're fossilized trees that connect many, many, many of the layers. And so it's literally impossible for these layers to be millions of years apart if you have a fossilized tree that connects them. That tree didn't sit there for 65 million years while sediment slowly built up around it. So polystrate fossils prove that the geologic column is not billions of years old. And then the last I talked about was the dinosaur bone beds, the soft tissue, and the DNA fragments being found in dinosaurs. Evolutionary model says that dinosaurs lived hundreds of millions of years ago, at the earliest 65 million years ago. And that's just physically impossible since we're still finding their soft tissue and DNA fragments inside of them. So it just can't last 65 million years. And we know what the degradation rates of these things are. So it's literally scientifically impossible for these things to last that long.
Okay, so if the flood happened, when do you think it happened?
About 4,500 years ago.
Okay, wouldn't there be a gap in ancient Egypt's history if there was this worldwide flood?
Well, I wouldn't go with ancient Egypt's history because they lied, and we know they lied.
What do you mean?
So
they lied?
So all of the writing, right, as far as what we see the writing post dates the flood. What you're referring to is what they wrote down and said the writing is 6,000 years old, or less than 4,500 years old. Excuse me, right? It doesn't go back before the flood, but the writing, what it says, goes back before the flood, meaning the writing itself is not that old, but the chronological kings list goes back farther. But we know that the Egyptians literally just lied about their chronology, right? There was kings and stuff that said, put me in here, take me out there, exaggerated their rules and so forth and so on. So you can't trust the Egyptian chronology because we know for a fact that they lied.
Okay, but so the Bible doesn't give us an exact year that the flood happened, but Bishop Ussher did make an estimation, and that would be about 2348 BC. And that goes straight through ancient Egypt's existence from as early as 3150 BC to about the time Jesus was born, and so there would be a large gap in their records if this flood happened, because it would have destroyed all of it.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking you what are you using? So if you're using their records, the chronology, man, I can't talk today, then their records don't actually go back that far. They're lying about it. And I can show you where the King's List, where they literally just took people out, like Akhenaten. They just took people out and inserted other people in there because you had one king who thought he was a god, and he would literally tell the scribes, write down that I ruled this long. So he could say he ruled for 1,000 years, right? I'm just using that as an example, but you cannot use the Egyptian chronology records because we know they lied. That's my point. They're not reliable. So you can't come up here and use, now if you're going to use objects or known dates, then I could say, okay, let's look at the dating techniques. But if you're looking at the broken quote unquote history, we know that they lied about their history. So you couldn't use that as proof of stating that we couldn't rely on it. Matter of fact, the stuff that we can rely on goes a little bit after the flood and forward, right? The stuff that we actually can rely on is about 4,500 years ago.
Okay, but I think you're saying that they lied about the stuff because this would directly disprove the flood.
No, I'm talking about the times. Let me give you an example. Okay, so there was a king called, or an Egyptian ruler, and we know about this one because luckily trade routes and stuff in Egyptian was a lot bigger, so we can tell this from other people's records. So there was a king or a pharaoh named Akhenaten, right? And then under Akhenaten you had Semenkhkare, however you say that name. Then you had Tutankhamun. Then you had Aya, and then you had Horemheb, right? These are the successions that they had as far as kings. Well, Akhenaten took over. He said he wanted to change the Egyptian gods from many gods to one sun god, the sun god Ra, if I'm not mistaken. So what he did is he changed all of the Egyptian gods to one individual, okay? And then when Tutankhamun come, he ruled for a small time, obviously. Then you had Aya, he ruled. And then Horemheb, what he did is he come in and he said, let's go back to the way things used to be. So he went from the single god back to the many gods that it used to be. And he didn't like the fact that Akhenaten had changed all of the different gods. So he literally told the scribes to erase them from history. And if it hadn't have been for like a mudslide that covered up Tutankhamun's tomb, or a rock slide, a lot of these people would be lost to history, right?
Yeah.
There is some hints about them here and there, but for the most part, they're totally erased from Egyptian history because the king literally just come in and said, no more, get rid of them. So he filled those gaps with rules, right? This person ruled this time, this person ruled that time. That's my point. The king could just come in and say, this king ruled for 200 years back in, from this to this to this. You can't trust those because you had one individual that had the power to come in and say, I'm going to just erase people from history. That's why we can't trust them.
Okay.
So if we know they did that, then that's definitely why we can't trust them.
Okay, so if we can't trust those records, then we can at least look at the story of the flood and why it's not really coherent.
Okay.
So, according to the story, there was, every animal was on that boat, right?
Not every animal, no. Like he didn't have to have fish on there, right?
Well, yeah. But like land animals.
Okay, so the land animals that had the breath of life in their nostrils, so that you don't got to have insects on there. Probably could have, but I'm not saying there wasn't insects, but there's just no need. Insects will live just fine on floating debris mats outside the ark. So it's not like you have to make a compartment for the insects. So
Okay.
the land-breathing animals that have the breath of life in their nostrils, yeah, those I would agree with.
Yeah, so like what different species were on this boat?
Well, you wouldn't have to have different species because, like, dogs, wolves are different species, but they're still the same kind. Like, if we made a Noah's Ark today, I wouldn't have to take chihuahuas on the ark. All I would have to do is take the wolf kind of animal, and then when they got off the ark, I could breed them back down to a chihuahua. So I wouldn't have to take any of the thousands of dog species that we have, I wouldn't have to take them. All I'd have to take is 2 wolves on Noah's Ark. Same thing with the cats, right? A lion and a tiger can still interbreed, meaning they're the same kind. So all you would have to do is have an original cat kind. And then you could breed, once they got off the ark, they can breed out into the many different cat kinds. Same thing with the cattle. I wouldn't have to have a buffalo, a longhorn cow, a milk cow, and a brown cow. I wouldn't have to have all those. I would just have to have a buffalo, maybe, whatever the original cow kind was. And then I had to have that on the ark. So not all of the million different species or millions of different species that we have today, I clearly wouldn't have to have those on the ark. All I would have to have is the original kind of that animal, and then they could speciate once they got off the ark.
Okay, and how long would that take?
About 4,500 years.
It would take 4,500 years to breed all of those animals down to all of the species that we have today.
Yep.
I would imagine it would take a lot longer.
Yeah, people say that, but when you actually do the math on it, it doesn't. Like, all the population models fit us, right?
What population models?
Like, you could just do any of them. Any group of animals you see today, ask it, the number that we have today. Like, for example, the elephants, if I'm not mistaken, are the ones that gestate the longest. They take the longest to have babies. Meaning, I think they're pregnant for like a year and some change since the time it happened. It almost takes an elephant like 2 years to have a baby. So if you just type in Google, could we get the amount of elephants, all the elephant populations that we have today, from 2 elephants that got off Noah's Ark 4,500 years ago? And it's going to tell you yes, because the population models fit us. So
Okay. Yeah. But what about
we can go ahead.
What about the fossils?
Well, they were made in the flood. That's why they're fossils. Things don't fossilize today, right? It takes a very specific set of circumstances for fossils to happen. Because if I unalive something and then just go out here and bury it in the dirt, it doesn't fossilize because it will rot away faster than mineralization can happen. So what you need is not only water with mineralization, you also need pressure, right? So this happened in the flood when you had rapid sediment burial, and then you had massive amounts of pressure pushing down and forcing fossilization. Things just don't fossilize today. Very
No,
rare.
the fossilization happened millions of years ago. It didn't happen during that time.
Well, then how do you have soft tissue and DNA fragments in dinosaurs? They literally can't be millions of years old.
What? Okay, I've never heard of people finding like soft tissue from dinosaurs.
Yeah, this is like the funny thing about this is over 20 years old, bro. This is found in 2005. This is like 21 years old. Mary Schweitzer, you can go look at the 60 Minutes interview. They found dinosaur soft tissue. So what they do is you take the dinosaur fossil and then you put it in an acidic bath that dissolves mineral. So there shouldn't be nothing left because it's supposed to be all stone, no bone. And when they put it in this acid bath that dissolves mineral, it leaves the organic material behind, meaning that there still remains soft tissue inside the dinosaur bone. And what they're left with is the soft tissue. And then recently, about 5 years ago, they're actually finding fragments of DNA.
Oh, okay.
And DNA has a half-life of 521 years, or 527 years. So there's literally no way that these things can be 65 million years old if you're finding soft tissue and DNA in them. It just, unless somebody has a scientific theory that can push them out there, which they don't yet, the best science that we have right now is that dinosaurs are not 65 million years old.
No, I think that there was chemical stabilization that allowed for that DNA to be preserved for millions of years.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't know about it, but now you automatically know about the chemical stabilization. Are you Googling this? I'm not.
No,
you
I'm
can.
just
I'm
throwing
not
this
like.
out there.
Okay, what's the chemical process that causes stabilization?
I'm not deep into that field, so I don't really know. But I'm pretty sure dinosaurs are not very recent.
Well, okay, so there's not a process. There's no chemical process that can stabilize the dinosaur soft tissue to date for 65 million years. Just doesn't happen.
Okay, so you think that all these dinosaur fossils are recent?
They unalived in the flood and they got fossilized during the flood. So when you say recent, I don't think they're recent. I think 4,500 years ago is a pretty long time ago. but it's still enough time for the fossils to retain soft tissue and DNA.
Okay, then why do all of the science textbooks point to the idea that dinosaurs were tens of millions of years old?
Because they have a cult that they want to teach people crap. I guess. I mean, that would be an argument from majority. So even if all of them said it, it wouldn't make it true, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Why is it that when you pick up a children, and I would challenge anyone, if you go to a children's cartoon book and it's about dinosaurs, because children love dinosaurs, right? What child doesn't love a dinosaur? When you pick up the book and open it up, what's the first words in the book say? Almost 99% of the time, it's going to say millions and millions of years ago. You're writing a book about dinosaurs. Why do you literally start it off with million? Like every single time, you have to make sure that everyone understands that these things lived millions and millions of years ago. Why can't you just write a dinosaur book? Right? You don't start this off with in any other field that you're talking about. You don't start that off. Like, right? If I write a crime novel, I don't go, John, who come from an amoeba 4.5 billion years ago. No, I just write the crime novel, right? But if you're writing about dinosaurs, the first thing you have to put in there is make sure that everybody knows that these things lived millions and millions of years ago. So much so that everybody just now automatically thinks you can go into a modern church and ask children, when did dinosaurs live, and unanimously they will say millions of years ago. Right? I'm gonna mute you up, brother. You got your mic on up top and you're over talking. So they're going to say millions of years ago, but the science doesn't say that. The science says that there's soft tissue and DNA fragments in them. We know what the half-life of collagen is. We know what the half-life of DNA is. Scientifically, they cannot be millions of years old.
Okay, then why do we have to dig really deep to find them?
Why do we have to dig? We don't. They're literally sticking out of the top of the ground in like Arizona and the Morrison Formation. They're actually they're popping out of the ground so much that if we don't start preserving them, we're probably going to lose a lot of specimens because they're breaking up.
Okay, I think a lot of that is tectonic plate movement.
Well, it's not tectonic plate movement. You can watch I think it's the show that used to be on History called Urban or Dinosaur Cowboy or something like that. It's about the ranch owners that own the majority of that land that they find these dinosaurs on, because this is vast open plain land, right? So the farmers that own it own this land that these dinosaurs are found on. And because the dinosaurs are so close to the surface now, that water goes down inside there and then it freezes. And then when water freezes, it expands. So if there's any cracks within the dinosaur bone, the water gets inside of it, expands, and then cracks, and then causes the dinosaur bone to break apart. And then smaller and smaller pieces, eventually it'll go away. So you can go, that's a fun little show I used to like to watch about these ranchers, these cowboys that used to go as a supplementary to their cows. They would go dig up the dinosaurs that's on their property in an effort to, sell the dinosaurs and get these fossils, so that they could be preserved. But yeah, it's not because of plate tectonics. It's literally because the water is going inside of the dinosaur bones and then freezing and breaking them apart.
Well, plate tectonic movement is the reason that we're finding fossils and stuff like on top of mountains, for example.
Well, I would agree with that. I just think the flood did it. But I would agree that plate tectonics is a real thing. I just think it started from the flood.
No, what I'm saying is the flood is not what put those fossils up there. It's tectonic plate movement, because the things that were once at the bottom of the ocean are now on top of mountains.
Yeah, I think the flood is what put the mountains there. The Bible says at the end of Psalms, it says the mountains arose and the valleys sank down. So the water was underneath the crust of the earth. It went from under the crust of the earth to on top of the crust of the earth. This, as the waters went to the low places, this caused the crust to break. Some crust landed on top of other crust. That's why you see like induction and things like this throughout the tectonic plates. This literally causes the mountains to rise and the valleys to sink down. So I think the mountains being there is a result of the flood.
But floods don't cause mountains like that.
Well, that flood did. I don't say flood. I wouldn't say that a flood today would, because floods today are not worldwide, so we don't have anything else to judge it by.
But even if it was worldwide, how would that make mountains?
All right. Like this. All right. So you got the water underneath the crust of the earth. You can say you don't believe it, but you can't say the Bible doesn't teach it. The Bible says the fountains of it literally says the dry land was founded on the waters. That's what the Bible says. Then it says the fountains of the deep broke open. This is where the majority of the water come from because it rained for 40 days and for 40 nights, but the water continued to rise for over 150 days. Water goes from underneath the crust of the earth to on top of the crust of the earth. There's no more support underneath the crust, so the water makes it extremely heavy. Crust gets heavy, it breaks. Once it breaks, mountains shoot up and valleys sink down. Water goes to the low parts. The mountains arise. I can make some predictions based off of this. If the water was going to the low places, caused the tectonic plates to break and mountains to shoot up and valleys to sink down, the mountain ranges will follow the coastline. And you can just Google this right now. Just ask it for a map of worldwide mountain ranges. And it's something like 94, 95, 98% of mountain ranges do in fact follow the coastlines.
Yeah, okay, but what about where did all the water come from though?
Fountains of the deep.
What does that even mean?
Brother, I just explained it to you. The water was underneath the crust of the earth. You can say you don't believe it, but that's what the Bible teaches. And then when the fountains of the deep broke open, meaning that the crust broke and the water came out from underneath the crust to on top of the crust, and that's where the world flooded. The world, as the crust got heavy, it broke, caused the waters to go down to the low places, and that's where they're at today. To this day, they're still here. They're in the oceans. If you push the mountains down and push the valleys up, then the earth would be covered by a 2-mile thick ocean. So there's more than enough water on the earth now to flood the entire planet. It's just the parts that's outside of the water now are higher than the parts that's under the water, obviously. That's why they're dry.
According to Genesis, didn't the flood cover every mountaintop?
Yes.
Okay, so how high up was the boat?
It doesn't tell us how high the highest hills were.
Okay, but the boat would have had to be really high up, meaning that all the animals would have suffocated.
Why?
Because the air would be too thin up there.
Because of Mount Everest?
Well, maybe not Mount Everest specifically, but if the water is high enough to cover all the mountains,
I know, brother,
the boats
but
won't have-
did you hear my argument when I said the mountains wasn't there until at the end of the flood? Or did you didn't understand it? Or remember when I did this whole thing? When I did this whole thing at the end of the flood? So the water wouldn't have to be way up here. It could be right here. And then as the crust broke, it caused the mountains to shoot up. So the water wouldn't have to be over the mountains originally because the mountains weren't there, right?
But that's
I'm
even
not
how
saying you
mountains
have to
form.
believe it, but you do understand the argument, right?
I mean, I guess, yeah, but that's not how mountains form.
But it's exactly how mountains form. You guys say exactly the same thing that we say, except for the water part. The plate tectonics are exactly the same. They bust into each other and cause mountains to rise, right? Plate tectonics run into each other. This causes uplift. You guys believe exactly the same thing. The only difference is that I can make predictions with the way that I believe it happened because I can say most of your mountain ranges will follow the coastline. So, but we still believe that plate tectonics, I just believe it happened faster. I'm not saying plate tectonics isn't real. I just think that it happened faster during the flood.
Okay.
Nick, can I?
Anyway, listen. I'm going to before I do. Let me roll up with him. No, you've been cordial. You've been calm, cool, and collective. Hopefully I've planted a seed today, man. And the reason why I do this is one, because I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians, and two, if you're not saved, I want to get you saved, man. So my last question for you is, what do you know about Jesus, bro?
Well, I used to be a Christian, so I know a decent amount.
Well, it sounds like you left a religion you didn't know for a religion that you really don't know.
I mean, I'm not really a scientist.
Well, that's okay. Neither am I. I'm a high school graduate, and I'm extremely dyslexic, but most of the time I do pretty good up here explaining this stuff. Even if I have a scientist or biologist or whatever, go check my page out, man. I'm not saying I'm the arbiter of truth, but it's not hard to defend God's word because it's right. So I think it's time to come back to the faith, man. But if you have any additional questions, man, I'd love to be the one that leads you back.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, man. Yeah, man. God bless. What's up, Alex?
If I wanted, I just wanted to jump in and comment on some of the things you were talking about.
Okay.
As far as what Noah was asking, I'm not saying that your theory on on the tectonic plates is wrong or anything, but the hydroplate theory on YouTube has a really good explanation about that with video and so it makes a lot of sense. Another thing I wanted to comment, and this is just a theory, I don't think anybody can prove it, but I've always thought that a lot of the pyramids and ancient structures that we see around the world, especially the ones with the megalithic stones, were all created or built pre-flood, and the flood actually destroyed them, because you go to a lot of these sites in Machu Picchu and Peru, and even in the Sphinx in Egypt, the whole face is just kind of withered away. That could have happened during the flood, where the flood waters would have eaten away at the face of the Sphinx, and also destroyed the top layer of a really completed pyramid. So I don't think it's beyond beyond the fact to think that a lot of these structures were pre-flood constructed, where people had incredible intelligence to get those things done, because we can't figure out how they lifted those megalithic stones even today. So just
Well,
wanted
I
to.
hear that. I hear that a lot, usually from people trying to make and no disrespect to you, I'm not saying you do this, but a lot of people want to make the pyramids out to be more mystical than they actually are. And if you actually go there, the casing stones were amazing engineering, because they were so well put together that you couldn't even slide a razor blade in between them. But the casing stones were all taken off and reused for other projects. What we see now is the gutted inside of the pyramid. And I'm not taking anything away from them. It's an amazing feat of human engineering. But if you look in the sides of them, it's not like this super engine. They literally took rocks and sand and stuffed it in the cracks, right? That stuff wouldn't have lasted there in a flood. And if you could say, well, they tried to fix it afterwards, the problem with the pyramids is the rocks are about, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 2.1 times buoyancy, meaning that they're 2.1 times heavier than water, which is heavy, but it's not heavy enough to last underwater, meaning that if it's underwater and the whole pyramid's underwater, then a very small current could push these rocks over, because they're only like 2.1 buoyancy, meaning that they're just a little bit heavier than the water. So a small current would be a force multiplier, which would topple the pyramid very easily. The Sphinx, when you look at the Sphinx, if I'm not mistaken, when you look at its feet and stuff, it's built within the sedimentary layers, which would have been laid down during the flood. So that's not pre-flood, in my opinion. The pyramid itself has got some problems with it being pre-flood. And when people say that we don't know how they did it, there's plenty of videos of YouTubers building megalithic structures in their backyards by themselves. It's just about leverage.
All right. Good point.
Yeah, man, it was good talking to you. Got anything else?
Can I mention
No.
something about that?
Yeah, on topic. Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, even like in my line of field, whenever we have to move heavy objects, I've moved stones that were 3 times the weight of cars by just using 2 little rocks and then turning it, and it moves by itself. There's a lot of simplistic ways in order to do stuff that seems extraordinary, but most people don't even get that concept because they try to think way outside the box, when all you got to use is your own common sense half the time.
Well, can you say that about those 900-ton stones? I forget what it's called, the three sister stones or whatever. But anyway,
Have you seen the inside the hallway there where you go to the king's chamber? It's like the grand. I can't. It's not the grand staircase, but the hall that goes to that. It goes up. It's like a ramp, and when you go up at the top, now usually when you watch a documentary about the pyramids, they don't want to tell you this because they want it to be mystical and make you think that it's this super feat. But they can actually see where there was the hallway was built as for rolling carts. It literally has grooves in the rocks where the wheels rolled. And then at the top of it, it has grooves where the rope would bite into into the ramp. So in other words, in the middle of the pyramid, when people talk about the stuff on the outside of the pyramid to build it, no, we literally have extreme. Maybe they've done that at the top, the very top part, but going all the way up to the grand staircase, it literally has a ramp in it. So what they would do is they would put these whatever amount of big ton stones you had at the bottom that was really huge, and it would be at the bottom, and they would put a cart at top. And then they would literally just take baskets of dirt and put it in the cart until eventually the cart became heavier than the rock. So when the cart would come down, all you had to do was have a pulley up here, which we clearly have proof of because the rope would eat away at the rock. Now, this was some extremely, extremely thick rope, but it would, when the cart would get heavy, it would pull down, which caused the rock to pull up. And then they would just take, at the bottom of it, once they got it on, and once you got it to the top, you could have had it land on rollers, right? And then at the bottom, all you had to do was just remove the sand out of the basket and then push the cart back up. So it's not like this, and there's plenty of evidence for this. Like I said, there's literally grooves in the rock where they've done it so many times that the wheels started to run grooves in the side of the rock there. And again, we can see where the rope burnt the stone smooth after going up and down so many times. So there's plenty of evidence for that. People just want other people to believe that it's this grand human engineering feat that could not be replicated today. Well, yeah, it could. But hey, man, it was good talking to you, brother. I appreciate your perspective on it, man.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, man. God bless. Alan, or let's see, OG, what's up, man? I can't see your whole name. OGJORGE, something. Going once. Going twice. Sold. All right. Philip, what's up, dude?
Hey, man, I wanted to bring up the point that, I'm a Christian, I do believe in the Bible and everything it says. The flood happened, for sure, and I've watched Kevin Hovind stuff. He does a great job explaining things with his charts and graphs. But the point that I want to kind of bring up that might rub against what most, young Earth Christians believe in is, I do understand where people get the 6,000 years from, 4,500. So it's like 2,000 years roughly from us to Jesus, 2,000 from Jesus to the flood, and then 2,000 years from the flood to Adam and Eve. And they have really detailed numbers as far as the ages of everybody and when the people were born. And so, yes, we do get a timeline for that. But the mental or the thought exercise that I want to bring up is what actually says that the Earth was created 6,000 years ago, because I didn't see that in there. Now, I do see the age of Adam, but how do we get the concept of aging is like aging is the result of sin. Well, up until Adam sinned, he didn't have any aging. Like, he was created as a man, not as a baby. So if he was in his, I don't know, let's say it's 32 years old. I don't know. If he was created in the form of a 32-year-old male, fully developed is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
His aging clock would not start until sin happened. So who's to say that Adam and Eve didn't live for millions or even billions of years before they decided to eat that? They condense everything to make it all fit in Genesis, and there's and then people didn't actually start writing things down until I believe, not even at the flood, but until like after Babel, when they had to actually start trying to figure out how to communicate to each other.
Yeah.
So, and then they had to go off of memory of like, okay, this is what happened. So, like, who's to say that, sure, the fact that there are young dinosaurs that have soft flesh does not necessarily preclude the possibility that there are old dinosaurs that have, cycled through and lived
Well,
millions of years ago.
let me ask you this: did the old dinosaurs pass away or unalive or?
I would say that once sin crept in, everything started taking a death cycle.
Yeah. Okay, so after sin, I would agree with that. So the contention that you had right there is the number one reason why I don't argue for the age of the earth as just the argument by itself. Now, I will say this unequivocally, without a doubt, I believe the earth is less than 10,000 years old, but I don't know. And so if somebody challenged me to a formal debate and said, let's debate the age of the earth, I wouldn't do it. I have no desire to do that because of what you just stated. The Bible gives us the chronological event, or the chronology of the individuals, not the age of the earth. So I would agree with you. But I'm also, I got to put some common sense in this that, so before the sin, there was no decay. Newton's second law of thermodynamics hadn't happened. So that still wouldn't count towards radioactive rocks. It still wouldn't mean that the rocks should still show billions of years, because then that meant that God allowed radioactive decay over here. Now, there is an argument to say that that's part of the design, that these things are supposed to decay. Okay, but it's a harder argument for me to get around. But ultimately, the Bible doesn't tell us the age of the earth. It tells us the age of the individuals. But again, if I'm being straight down the line, I don't know how long Adam was in the garden before he sinned, but I still don't think it was millions of years.
Okay, I can respect.
I can go hundreds of years. But millions is a little harder for me because God told them to be fruitful and multiply. That was literally the first thing God told them to do, was to be fruitful and multiply. So if they lived for millions of years, then it seems like they could have had children, and their children would have eaten of the fruit, which would have been the disobeying. Or maybe they were allowed to eat it and it just didn't count until Adam and Eve. But there's a whole different line you got to go down. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the easiest way I could answer that.
Yeah, okay, so I do believe that there were generations of children, and you're all right on that. But like, it's like, God told them, hey, Adam and Eve don't eat from this. So as they had children, I would just, this is just an assumption, but I would say that Adam and Eve told their children, hey, this is what God told us. Don't go and eat that tree. Okay, mommy. Okay, daddy, I won't. And then go play off. Since sin was not there, disobedience wasn't there. So, the disobedience was not introduced until Satan tricked Adam and Eve. So,
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Yeah, they wouldn't. But my point is, if they lived in the garden for millions or billions of years, then the amount of children that they would have had, and their children would have children, and their children's children, the world would be extremely populated in millions and billions of years. So then none of their children ate of the tree.
Well, yeah. Well, if the garden was, because the garden did not encompass the whole earth, it was specific to that region, and maybe they did multiply, and maybe there was a. Now, this is all just speculation because it's not in the Bible, but
Yeah, I got you.
Didn't necessarily have to have millions of babies, and at the time, DNA also wasn't corrupted as it is now. Then, and as far as the radiation point, there could have been, I believe there was more of a covering over the earth, because as far as we know, there's the ozone layer that we have now, but who knows before the flood, when the waters came up and waters came down and everything, that there was more of a separation, and and then also our bodies, their bodies, Adam and Eve's, all our bodies are designed to heal themselves. It's just with the lack of oxygen, because when the flood happened, of course, back to the other guy's point, like the air pressure was a lot higher back then. That's what allowed everything to grow a lot bigger than it is now.
Yeah.
So
It was the air quality as well.
yes, that too.
Hmm.
Well, actually, I
Well,
have to hop off, but yeah, I did enjoy this conversation.
all right, man. Appreciate you.
Yep.
All right. God bless. Bronco, what's up, man?
How's it going, dude?
Hanging in there.
It was I mean, I was just actually just scrolling through TikTok, and I mean, I have these conversations with people all the time, and it was kind of nice to run into someone that actually has a like-minded situation onto the aspects of like what I believe in as well. And I mean, some of the things that the last guy was saying, I mean, there were like little gaps and stuff that I mean, I could say that I disagree with a little bit, especially whenever it came down to the time frame of Adam and Eve and the next portion of humanity. I mean, it's because we gotta remember that an entire basically human population was created between the time of Adam and Eve and the Great Flood, and then that's whenever they got wiped out as well. So who was to say? I mean, but people were living to be 980 years plus in the Bible. So who's to say that that wasn't the extent of where the millions of years have came from, or this or that or whatever. I mean, but it wasn't. I mean, but we do believe we could pretty say for certain from flood on to now was around 6,000 years.
Yeah. Well,
So
the flood till now is about 4,500 years from the flood to now.
45.
So
Can you explain that to me?
yes.
Because I believed it to be 6.
Well, 6 is where you get. It says Adam begot Seth at 120 years. That's where the 6,000. So that's where the young Earth guys believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old. 2,000 years after that was the flood. 2,000 years after that was Christ, and then now we're in the 2,000 years after Christ. That's the 6,000. So about 4,500 years ago would be where we're at since the flood, according to the chronology of the Bible.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I guess that can make sense. Um. Do you, hold on. I mean, I have my own theory on the ice age per se. Do you have a theory on it?
I think it happened from the flood. I think there's evidence for it, but
Yeah, it is.
I got different way. Yeah.
So I mean, can you give me your explanation for the ice age, or would you like to hear mine?
Nope. Let me hear yours. Go ahead.
So my opinion is okay. So that layer above the firmament was touching outer space, correct? And so outer space can get down for lamer terms, to negative 200 degrees negative 200 degrees Fahrenheit / 0 degrees Celtic in scientific terms, if you want to say. But when ice gets that cold, it becomes magnetic. And so whenever the earth broke open for the fountains to rise out of the earth or whatever, it would have lunged at debris or whatever you want to call it into the atmosphere, and then it would have broken that layer of ice that was surrounding the earth, that was also protecting us from the sun rays and everything else like that, and that would have came to the earth, and it being magnetic would have went to the north and south pole, and which would have instantly caused an ice age per se. That's
Yeah.
why you find that's why people find mammoths and stuff standing up with food and they're still in their mouth and inside their bellies and stuff like that. It's because something so cold hit them at one time that it had to freeze them while they were still standing up.
Yeah. So it would have to be a special type of ice, because just regular H2O ice or water by itself, it's called the Meissner effect. This is something that I heard from the young Earth creationist side for a while, and it's something that I parroted too, because I was like, hey, that sounds legit. A lot of young Earth guys are parroting it, but unfortunately I didn't do my own research, and somebody come in here and got me on it. And when I looked it up, sure enough, super cold ice is not magnetic by itself. So you have to have or super cold water, or when the water becomes ice, obviously. Now, if you're saying that it's super ionic ice or something like that, that it has a property outside of being just normal H2O that would assist it in becoming having the Meissner effect,
Well,
like
but
certain metals becoming really cold does.
Yeah, but I mean, what back then was super normal, as into what we deem today to be normal?
I agree with you. I
Exactly.
agree with you. I don't know what the makeup of the canopy would have been if there was one. I believe there was one. So the theory that we have is that when the canopy broke open, then obviously this caused the ice to go to the poles. Well, we don't have anything to prove that, so I would just caution creationists to be very careful with saying that ice is magnetic and goes to the poles.
That's why I said theory and not facts.
Yeah,
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, I do agree with you that I would say that a comet with an ice tail did hit the planet, and I do agree with you that this caused. I was going to say this is what caused the ice age. I think that a comet hit the planet, broke the planet up. This is what caused the water to shoot out into, the fountains of the deep to break open. The whole entire planet cracked open like an eggshell, and the tail of the comet did in fact rain down in the northern part of the planet. And we know that, like what you just said, it is true. It froze the woolly mammoths so fast that they couldn't fall over.
Yeah.
Right? It snowed so fast that they couldn't even fall over. And we know that it wasn't there wasn't eating in an icy environment. They were eating tropical plants,
Because
right? They
they
had
had
flowers in
vegetation.
their mouth. Yeah, they had flowers. So you can't be eating flowers inside of an ice climate. So whatever happened so fast, it literally started snowing seconds.
Yes.
It was snowing so hard that the woolly mammoths flash froze and froze in the upright position. They couldn't even fall over. So you're correct about that. And I would agree with you that that's what caused the ice age. Yeah, I think it was a comet's tail, 100%.
Are
Yeah,
you
and
implying we're not currently in an ice age?
We're 100% not an ice age. Are you looking outside of your window right now and see feet and feet of snow?
Hey, really quick, guys. I don't
Yeah,
want to interrupt,
there's
but I've got a
glaciers
live to
on
start here in 20
Antarctica.
minutes.
Yeah, in
What's
that.
up?
Well, I
There's
just wanted
glaciers
to
on the poles.
hold on just a second, please. I got to get in and out here really quick so he can bring up more guests. I just want to also reiterate the fact that it had never rained ever in the history, right? This, per Bible, this is what Bible says. And
Yeah,
as
it
far
never
as
rained.
the fountains of the,
I was like, I agree with you. It never rained before the flood.
everything was watered from the ground. It came up and the dew set. So this is how vegetation thrived. That's number one. Number two, when God formed Adam, he formed him as a fully grown man, right?
Yeah.
Okay, why couldn't he have made an old earth? So this is when you say, host, that you couldn't really argue the date of the earth. Well, the date of the earth and the date of life is two very different things. And so, and I would agree with that. I don't think we have a clue, but I also don't agree with any kind of dating system, especially,
Radiometric, yeah. I agree with you. I mean,
any of those things.
when
But
when he
also-
made Adam and Eve, he made a fully mature planet, 100%.
Absolutely, and that's where I stand too. And science is there are a bunch of Johnny come latelys trying to figure out what God did here. That's in short. And the James Webb telescope is making that very clear to us. So,
Amen.
God bless you all. Thank you for your time.
God bless, brother.
God bless
I
you, buddy.
appreciate you.
And I'm sorry, but Dexter, you were saying that you were believing like the whole like what says we're not in the ice age now. Like even in the name, it's an age of ice
Yeah,
everywhere,
No,
not just in the North or South Pole.
so we're in an interglacial period. That means there aren't glaciers everywhere on the planet, but the fact that there are glaciers on the poles means we're in an ice age.
But that
what an
does
ice
not
age
mean
is.
no. An ice age is something where ice encompasses the entire planet. That's an age of ice, not having ice in certain places of the planet because of just because of its geological location.
It's just a fact. This is what like an ice age is defined as.
Okay, well, you can define stuff in one way. That don't mean we have to agree with the definition of people saying that this is a fact because I define it that way. Whether you want to say we're in an ice age now or not, it doesn't matter to me none. We were just talking about how the ice went down into the Americas and now it's up around the poles. So if you want to say that you're still in an ice age now, that's fine. I still believe it was caused by Noah's flood.
Right.
You
And
also said a comet hit Earth, I believe.
That's what I believe. Yeah. Hmm.
Do you have any geological evidence to substantiate that a comet hit Earth? 4,000 years ago?
You don't think that a meteor or something hit Earth?
Comets and meteors are different.
Same difference. It's one of them has an
No.
ice tail, but they're still rocks in outer space.
Either way, do you have
hold on,
evidence
I
to
think his
suggest the
argument.
comet?
Hold on. It would be the same evidence. So if you believe that an asteroid hit the Earth, and I just state that it was a comet, and then I give you, so we both agree that a rock hit the Earth. We're in agreement with that. I just believe it had an ice tail with it that caused it to snow really fast, and I've already went through that evidence. Now, if you don't agree with it, but that's fine. But I don't know why I have to say it again if you believe something hit the Earth. I just believe it had an ice tail.
I believe something hit the Earth, but I don't believe something hit the Earth so massively 4,000 years ago that it cracked it open like an egg.
No one said
Okay.
that. No one said
I
that
did.
was the thing that cracked it open like an egg.
I did. I said that. I believe that a comet hit the Earth and cracked it open. That's what caused the fountains of the deep to break open.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's where you lost me.
Where's the geological evidence of that?
The geological column.
The geological column, how does the geological column show that?
It's called hydrologic sorting. So this shows that you had a worldwide flood all over the planet.
So in the geological column, if everything was unalived at the same time, I would expect animals that can't swim at all to be at the bottom, and then animals that can kind of swim to be a little bit more up, and then animals that can swim really good to be at the top, right?
No, that's not. No. What you would expect to see, because
what
this
would you
was
expect to see?
I would expect to see that the animals that live at the bottom to be at the bottom. I would expect fish, so if I went to Ripley's Aquarium right now, let's just imagine that we go to an aquarium in a big city, like usually Ripley's have one, right? And then inside the aquarium, they also have a spot of land in the middle of the aquarium for the turtles and stuff like this to hang out with. If I was to take a bunch of sediment in a dump truck and go over there and dump it inside of the aquarium, and then it fossilized, you would come back 2 million years later and you would find the crustaceans would be at the bottom because that's where they live. The fish would be in the next layer because that's where they live. And then the amphibians would be in the next layer because that's where they live. And then the reptiles and mammals would be at the top, on top where the land is at, because that's where they live. And then the last would be the birds. If there were any birds up there and they fell and unalived, then they would be at the very top because they live at the top. So this is not a progression layer of how things evolved. This is where they live naturally.
So it would be weird to see a fish in the same layer as, say, like a bird, right?
Well, not weird. You got exceptions and then you got rules, right? So that would be an exception to the rule. So nothing's perfect all over the planet. Even nobody's predictions are 100% correct. Some places you have a nice column like this where you have the Cambrian explosion and then you have fish, amphibian, reptile, bird, or mammal, bird. In some places the column shows that. In other places in the world, you literally just have a jumbled up mess of animals all together.
There's no place in the column like where, let's say you talk about krill. Krill are all over the column. And we look at like a lot of these animals and even plants, and we see them like all over the column. Under your proposed way of sorting, all groups would be in relatively the same area instead of that same area and every area above it.
It's not a perfect assumption, no, because floods also mess up things. That's why I said even with you guys and your geologic column, it's not perfect. In places you have it to where it's sorted out by the way you think it should happen, where you have the Cambrian explosion at the bottom, and then you have it goes crustacean, fish, amphibian, reptile, mammal, bird, right? That's the way that it goes. But it's not like that all over the planet.
No.
You find ducks in dinosaur layers. So it's not perfect.
Yeah, so under my worldview
No, yeah.
of how the geological column works, you would be able to find what's it called? Things that existed post a thing lower in the layers because they could have been buried lower in the layers. But you couldn't find something that already went extinct in an upper layer. Because that's not how
Like
fossilization works. But you could
like
have
the
an
coelacanth?
intrusion in the lower layer.
Like the coelacanth?
I don't know what specifically you're referring to.
Coelacanth is a fossilized fish that's a load fin fish that you guys thought was the missing link from fish to the load fin fish, which would be fish to amphibian, right? And then they still find them alive today.
Okay.
But if you don't know about it, we won't contend with it. But what if I could show you that these layers can't be millions of years apart from each other? What does that do for your column?
We didn't know the age of the column before we had the column. Interestingly, we knew the order of the column, and then once we were able to figure out dating methods, then we could figure out the dates of the column. But we had the order of the column for many years before we actually got the dates.
What dating methods do they use to date the columns?
Depends, but mostly it was rates of decay in igneous rock.
That's not true at all. You had the geologic column with the current dates was, hold on a second. You had the geologic column with the current dates before any radiometric dating technique was figured out. Before radiometric dating was invented, you already had the date.
I would be interested in how they did that, but to my knowledge, we figured out the order, then we figured out the dates.
Well, it's called index fossils. So literally they looked at sediment rates, meaning they looked at how long it took for a river basin to lay down sediment in a year. And they say, okay, it took 1 year for this river to lay down 1 inch of sediment, just to make the math simple. And then they extrapolated, well, if it takes one year to lay down 1 inch of sediment, and then they look at the Grand Canyon, they go, well, yeah, this took millions of years because you got millions of inches. But the problem is that's not how you extrapolate that. Obviously, if you had a worldwide flood, these things would happen a lot faster. So that's exactly how they did the geologic column to begin with. And then when radiometric dating come in, then they calibrated the radiometric dating off of the geologic column. And so the way that you date the geologic column before radiometric dating is literally index fossils. They get that like if you found, you would assign a fossil to that date. Like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, you would say, okay, this is the Cretaceous. So anything found in the same layer as a Tyrannosaurus Rex would be in the Cretaceous era. That's their thought process. So it's called index fossils.
That's not like a date, they weren't putting this happened this many years ago. That's a relative dating method.
What are you talking about? Yes, they did. They absolutely
did. Please provide me evidence of that? They didn't.
Yeah. His name is Ernest Haeckel. He come up with uniformitarianism, and yes, he did. He wrote plenty of books about the age of the Earth before radiometric dating was invented, brother. What are you talking about? You think that they didn't have any dates until radiometric dating was invented?
So Ernest Haeckel,
not Haeckel. I gave you the wrong name. That's the fish guy. Sorry. What's his name? Charles Lyell. Sorry, Charles Lyell.
Charles Lyell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what did he do that you contend with?
Uniformitarianism. He says that the way things are happening now is the way that they've always been. Meaning that if we see slow sediment rates today, then therefore it's always been slow sediment rates. And he literally stated, quote, he wanted to remove Moses from the science of geology. So when people used to look at the geologic column, they went, wow, look at all of this evidence all over the world for Noah's flood. Charles Lyell come and said, no, I want to remove, he literally stated that he had a purpose. I want to remove Moses from geology. And so he said that this must be slow processes over millions of years. That's called uniformitarianism. That's literally called the father of geology. This was before the invention of radiometric dating. So yes, they were using these dating techniques. Okay, which one you going to go with? Yes or no?
Okay. this guy did champion uniformitarianism. You're defining uniformitarianism a little bit interestingly, probably not how this guy defined it. You're saying that the rates are going to be the same. I don't think this guy believed the rates of sedimentary are going to be the exact same. I believe this person believed, as most uniformitarians believe, is that the general laws of nature work the same, but under different conditions, like sediment, the laying down of sediment. Of course that changes year over year to a variety of different factors. But the actual factors...
He applied it to the... I don't care about the other ones. He applied it to geology, meaning the sediment rates. That's what he applied it to, the sediment rates. So when you say I don't believe he did it this way, yes, he did.
On the age of the Earth, though, because of it.
How do you get that it was massively off?
Because he thinks it's millions of years old.
Okay, they've updated things, but I mean, I don't know. It's all what 4 point something billion now.
Yeah, so he's off by at least 4 point something billion years.
I would say you're off by like 4 point something billion years too. So I think he was closer than you are.
So what's your evidence that I don't know how old you think the Earth is, but I would love to know how old you think it is and why.
I'd say less than 10,000. And I've given those reasons. Hydrologic sorting, polystrata fossils, soft tissue and dinosaur bones, DNA fragments being found in dinosaurs.
Let's start with hydrologic sorting. How does hydrologic sorting prove the Earth is less than 10,000 years old?
Well, it proves what the Bible says, yeah, but I would get the date from the Bible, no doubt.
Okay, so hydrologic sorting isn't the reason you think it's that old, or any of these other things. It's just
No, that's true. I would use that to support the theory of the Bible. So if all those things are true, then I would trust what the Bible says about something I can't test.
Okay, how would you respond to uranium-lead dating? Why do you think uranium-lead dating?
Because all of your radiometric dating has the same three fundamental problems. One, you have to assume the parent material. Two, you have to assume the decay rate remains constant. And three, you have to assume that it's in a closed system. And we know for a fact that it's not in a closed system. Number two, that it decays the same. I would grant that one. But do what?
You don't have to assume the first two.
If you think that something is 65 million years old, how do you know how much parent material was in it when it started?
It's a ratio, not an assumption.
It's the parent material. The daughter materials comes from the parent material. So how do you know that all right, so you got uranium lead. That's the one that you brought up. Let's say we're looking at a zircon crystal. Okay, yeah. It has, you open up the zircon crystal and it has 50% uranium and 50% lead. And then you look at the half-life and you go, okay, the half-life of uranium to lead, because uranium decays into lead. Then you go, okay, the half-life is 1 billion years, just to make the math simple. Then you go, okay, because half of it is decayed into lead, it's 1 billion years old. How do you not know that it started, that when it started, when the zircon crystal was formed, that it formed with 75% uranium, and it had 25% lead in it.
Zircon crystals don't form with lead?
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
What?
Could you please give me evidence that zircon crystals form with lead? I can show you the papers.
Yeah, absolutely. It resists lead, but all you have to do is if it's formed in the presence of potassium, that absolutely pulls in lead. 1 second.
Which is why we don't date in areas with potassium. Then
if it's 4 something billion years ago that you think, and zircon crystals can absolutely move in and out of ecosystems. We see this in Australia all the time, where they say that the zircon datings are literally billions of years older than the rock. So if the zircon can move in and out of a system, which is what you believe, outside of the rock, then how do you know that the original rock didn't have potassium in it? You don't.
Yeah, you definitely do, especially in the places that we're doing it in Tanzania. Like,
if that rock has it started off up here, right? Erosion has eroded the rock away, and all that's left are the zircon crystals. The zircon crystals now go into another type of rock, meaning that now these zircon crystals, because they got washed into different areas, are older than the rocks. This happens. We can go to the places in Australia where they have this. Okay, the zircon crystals themselves, according to you guys, your evolutionists, the zircon crystals are older than the rock. that original
Evolutionists don't
rock
do this
is.
science.
Listen to me.
This is
Listen to
not
me.
biology.
You're not listening. Okay. If the zircon crystals are older than the rock, and that rock that's no longer there is washed away, and now you're just telling me that we know for a fact there was no potassium that could have brought in lead when it was originally formed? You're going to tell me you know that?
Yeah, if there's no crystal
How do you know that?
damage. What do you mean? How
You
do I
didn't.
know that? If
It can
the
be a
crystal
perfect.
has-
It can be a perfect crystal from where it formed. So you have to know the parent. And this is why I said when it's formed, if it's formed around potassium, potassium can bring in lead. Okay, and the potassium is the 11th most abundant thing on the planet. Okay, so there's a lot of it around. With that being said, if it can bring it into a perfect crystal when the crystal is formed. Okay, how are you going to exclude potassium if that rock is no longer there? It's no longer there for you to test it and say, hey, you know what? There was potassium here, so we can't date these zircon crystals because we might have leaching.
So there's one easy internal check. So there's uranium-238, right, which decays to lead-208, I believe. And there's uranium-235, which decays to lead-207.
You're talking about concurrence or congruence. I never asked you that. I understand that. The lead content, because the congruent goes off of a system. You have to read the paper to determine what they determine congruent is. There's no scientific term, meaning that they consider the crystals to be congruent if they're within a 10% range. Some of them within a 0.1% range. So the range is different. So when people come up here and they say the crystals are concurrent, meaning their clocks match up, I would agree with you. But the problem is that there's no universal clock that we're using. You can, if it's 10% different, then the paper can say, well, we define this as being concurrent. So then they print the paper and say that these crystals gave concurrent dates when actuality they didn't. It's very rare for you to find an actual zircon crystal that give you concurrent dates as far as identical. Most of them are within a range of each other. But that wasn't my question. My question was, how can you determine that there wasn't any potassium to bring in lead in the original rock if the original rock is now gone and zircon crystals can move in and out of different systems? How can you determine that it was never around any potassium to bring in radiometric material?
I'm not a geologist. I don't have that answer. I could do 5
Fair.
minutes of research and get that answer for you if you really
Now,
want.
if you don't know, that's fair. If you don't know, there's nothing wrong with not knowing something. I don't know a lot of things. But that was ultimately my question with you to begin with, is when you say that we know we don't have to assume the parent material. Yeah, you do. You have to assume the parent material because you don't know how, you may know how much uranium's in an item now, and you may know how much lead is in an item. But you have to assume that there was no lead in it to begin with. That's my point. That's an assumption. You literally wasn't there, so you have no clue if lead was in it when it began, right?
Okay, what
One
are
of the
you
funny
talking
things
about
is
with potassium drawing in lead? I actually can't find any evidence talking about that.
I might be saying that wrong. So let me make sure I'm getting it right. Zircon's grow in hot water. Phosphorus. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Phosphorus. I said potassium, and it's phosphorus. My apologies.
Okay.
Yeah, and if the zircon is formed around hot water springs, this allows the crystalline structure to open up, and it can bring in additional amounts of lead. Zircon grown in hot molten rock, magma-like molten. However, when phosphorus was added, this was done in a lab. I can give you the paper if you'd like. It's called The Incorporation of PB into Zircons. They literally did a whole paper about how lead can get inside of a zircon crystal. And I can take you to the scientifically peer-reviewed paper if you'd like. But it talks about how
this is possible if there was but it's not like it magically appears inside the zircon crystal or chemically appears inside the zircon crystal.
Brother,
there has to be a
I was
crack,
still right
alteration,
about
or inclusion in
no
the crystal.
Not when it's forming. If it's forming, right? That's when the zircon crystal, when it's forming, it usually resists lead unless there's phosphorus around, and phosphorus can bring it up to the parts per million, it can go from like 1 part per million when there's no phosphorus. It usually resists lead, but if you add phosphorus, and this is what this study shows, it goes to 1,500 parts per million. So that's a 1,500% increase just by bringing in lead if there's phosphorus around. So now, and once it gets inside, then you could say, well, now it's a perfect zircon crystal. It doesn't have, it's got smooth edges or sharp edges, and there's no damage to it. Which the damage part I think is hilarious, because uranium is automatically radioactive. So the moment you put radioactive material, which is uranium, inside the zircon crystal, alpha particle starts blowing holes in the side of it. So they're looking for undamaged crystals, but the thing that holds it inside of it literally shoots bullets through the side of it. So they're looking for the perfect zircon crystal that's undamaged. The older it is, the more damage it's going to have, because you have alpha particles. That's what shoots off. That's what causes your Geiger counter to be able to pick it up. These alpha particles are literally blowing holes in the side of it.
I mean, I'm pretty sure scientists have accounted for that. I think it's because of the way zircon forms that, like, I don't think what you're proposing is possible. That it would just randomly form with lead inside of it, because then it would.
Well, it does. I just showed you. I can give you the paper. Yeah, it absolutely does. And you have to assume that the lead that's in it is not original. That the lead in it came from the decay. You don't know that.
Irregardless, your worldview would still be wrong. Because
please tell me how.
Even if there was, say, 25% lead included into some of these rocks, you'd still be off by billions of years.
I picked that number out of the top, just out of my head to show you something. So my point is that if there's leaching involved, then you can't use it. Now, if you want to say, just for the sake of argument,
than how old you think the Earth is.
Well, now you're going to go to tree ring matching, and you have to say that those rings are years or annual seasons when they're not. They're growths. A tree ring is a growth, not a year. Okay. But even the oldest trees goes back to 10,000 years, which would be my contention about how old the Earth is. We don't have any trees that go back millions of years.
Sorry. I just assumed you believed the Earth was
I said it was less than. I said it's less than 10,000, so around that area. But regardless, the tree rings, you can put up to 4 rings on in a year. So the rings are not years; they're growths, not years.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of other forms of radiocarbon dating, then? You also
if you want to,
radiometric dating's bad?
Well, they all have the same fundamental problems. Every one of them has the parent material, the decay rate, and then leaching problem. But
let's talk about
here's my.
Why would you ever assume decay rate can change?
Okay. Oh, all right. So let me. I don't like answering questions with questions, but this is how I'm going to answer it. We've been observing the decay rate remain constant for 100 years now. I don't even think it's been 100 years that we've actually been testing it, but just for the sake of argument, let's say it's to make the number nice and round. We've been noticing it for 100 years and it hasn't changed. The half-lives of everything past carbon-14 goes into the billions of years. So you think it's a reasonable extrapolation to make because we've been observing it for 100 years that therefore we know it doesn't change over billions of years? You think that's a fair extrapolation to make?
Yeah, it's a fair extrapolation to make that gravity works everywhere in the universe. Since there's no evidence that gravity doesn't work everywhere in the universe.
What do you mean gravity? Okay, so if there's no mass in a different place, is there gravity?
What do you mean no mass in a place?
You know, mass creates gravity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no mass, is there gravity?
Depends on how close it is to some massive object and how long ago.
Okay, so now we're talking about universal. We're talking about universal laws. So how can you state now, because that the decay rate has remained constant for 100 years, that we know there's no mitigating factors that can change it over a billion years? And you literally think that we've done all the tests that could possibly be done and put radioactive decay in every kind of situation that we think it could be in an effort to determine the decay rate doesn't change. And you're comfortable with that by saying, "Yep, we know all that." For a billion years, we know that it doesn't change.
Anything, but it works that way.
I'm thinking this one is the one that I'm usually willing to grant because it is a nuclear force. But I'm not going to change the fact that I would say that if With radiocarbon 14, that goes into 50,000. I think 100 years to 50,000 years is a reasonable time frame to say, okay, I think we conclude that it wouldn't change because we've been watching it in 100 years. Therefore, if it changes by 0.1% in billions of years, that turns out to be a large number. So I think it is unreasonable to say that because we've been watching it for a billion or for 100 years, therefore we can extrapolate over a billion that this is the way that it's going to be constantly. I think that's extremely arrogant. But that's the one that I'm usually willing to grant because it is a nuclear force. So just for the sake of argument, I will give you that the decay rate doesn't change. I will also concede and say, let's go with leaching. Leaching doesn't happen. You know they're finding carbon-14 in dinosaur bones?
I guess. I mean, I don't know specifically what you're
Now, the
talking
dinosaurs
about.
didn't live 50,000 years ago. So this is what I mean when I say that when we talk about radiometric dating, the scientist picks the data that fits them and literally gets out the rest. We don't agree with it. So
I mean,
when they're
that's
finding
just
carbon-14 in
not
dinosaur
true at
bones,
all.
it's not true. Okay, well then carbon-14 in dinosaur bones proves that they're less than 50,000 years old. The only way you can get around it is if you start allowing in leaching, meaning that you allow groundwater to bring in
What do you mean
radiometric
by
material.
bone? I'm pretty sure we don't have any dinosaur bones. We have dinosaur fossils.
You're aware they're finding soft tissue and DNA fragments in dinosaurs, right?
I'm not aware of exactly what you're talking about.
This is 20 years old. You're not aware that they're finding soft tissue in dinosaurs now?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not super clued in on dinosaur archaeology. It's not really my field of study.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're finding soft tissue in dinosaurs. So this is another reason they didn't live 50,000 years. I mean, they didn't live millions of years ago.
So you're claiming what? Dinosaurs lived 50,000 years ago?
I'm claiming that they unalived in a flood 4,500 years ago.
Then, so 4,500 years ago, you think the flood happened?
Yeah.
Isn't that like when Egypt was building pyramids?
Mm-mm. I don't know when they started, right after that, probably. How are you dating that? Are you going to use radiometric dating, which we just said we couldn't use because it's flawed? Or, I don't know
To
your
date when
argument.
the
I don't know
pyramids
if you're...
existed, we have written records.
Okay, you can't go with their chronological records because we know they lied.
What?
What?
Who lied?
The Egyptians, they lied about their chronology. So when you say that they're this old, we know for a fact that they removed people, added people, and the pharaohs had the ability and power. I can literally name the pharaohs, like Akhenaten, that was just removed from time because the pharaohs literally went to the scribes and said, remove this individual from time, and I want you to write down that I actually ruled from this year to this year. So we know historically, without a doubt, that they lied about their chronology because the pharaohs were quote unquote gods and they could say that this is when I ruled. So you cannot use a faulty timeline and then say the flood can't be real because Egyptian chronology goes back farther than that. Can't use that. We know they lied about it. And I can literally show you where they lied.
So you don't trust our interpretations of Egyptian history, as well as like architectural stuff, and probably also some radiocarbon dating.
No, most of that stuff
because
goes right back to the
we
age
have
of the flood,
evidence
brother.
that Egyptians lied.
No. So which argument are you going with, man? Gosh, it's just like, it's so hard to pin you down because you're very slippery. You move from one
Because
argument
we
to the
have
other argument to the other argument.
There's a mountain of evidence.
Okay, so which
And I'm
argument
giving
are you?
multiple
I want
pieces
you to
of
just to go. Well, let's just go one at a time. Okay, let's go one at a time. So, which are you talking about? Their building techniques and stuff. Most of your cultures pop up around the time of the flood. You got some give and take room there between both the flood model and the time. I would give or take a couple hundred years there, but
The
almost
Egyptian
all
Third
of
Dynasty.
everything pops up after the flood. 4,500 years ago, you start seeing all of this stuff start popping up. Now, if you're going to use the records, which is the chronological events, like I just mentioned, the king's records, we know that they lied, so we can't go with those. You can't say because we have a list of kings that go back before the flood, therefore the flood didn't happen, because we know they lied. That's reasonable.
So we discard that because we know they lied at some point, which means the entire list is useless for evidence, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials. What about that?
Okay, if you want to go with that, then dinosaurs lived 50,000 years ago, or had to have lived within no later than 50,000. That fits 4,000. It doesn't fit 65 million.
So if I do one Google search on an explanation for that, and I find an answer instantly of it
I know what
probably
it's going to
saying
tell you.
some external material was added to it.
I know what it's going to tell you. It's going to tell you leaching, but which argument are you going with? Are you going with leaching happens or it doesn't happen? Now, that's why I'm so confused with you on your radiometric. When it helps you out, you want to say that leaching doesn't exist, but then when it hurts you because dinosaurs couldn't have lived, you go, oh, leaching. So I can
You
do
do
that too. I
understand
can just say,
we
well,
can
anything that
detect
agrees with
leaching.
me is, how can you detect leaching?
If there's a multiple ways to detect leaching.
How? I would love to know.
What's it called? Some ways you can detect leaching, like if you look at a zircon crystal and there is an inclusion, or that would mean leaching happens. If there are cracks in it that are visible,
It would means
that would mean
leaching. It
happens.
means leaching. It means leaching could happen. But I've already told you that as soon as you put a radioactive material inside the crystal, it starts blowing holes in the size of it.
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
So there's a difference between a particle, or what's called leaching that would be, or what's called a hole that would be consistent with an alpha particle, and a hole that would be consistent with leaching. You do
Okay,
understand
so
that, right?
how do you get so in the soft tissue of the dinosaur bone is where they're finding carbon-14 inside the soft tissue. So how do you get leaching? Because if it's leaching, then the water should have brought in mineral to replace the soft tissue with minerals. So it shouldn't be soft tissue there anymore. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say that that this water brought in carbon-14, but it just didn't bring in any mineral with it to cause the soft tissue to mineralize.
So are you going to present a specific case in which there was carbon-14 in a soft tissue, or are you saying that in some there's carbon-14 and in others there is soft tissue?
No, there's
Which
soft
are you
tissue
pointing?
and both. There's soft tissue in a lot of them. This is not.
Yeah, but
this
like
is not
is
new
there
anymore.
one that has that there is carbon-14 in the soft tissue?
I don't know how many they tested, but yeah, I don't know how many they tested that had it, but yeah, there's been carbon-14 found in the soft tissue.
Great. Could you present to me that source then, and I'll look over it?
Yeah, it'll be your creation source. So it'll be Answers in Genesis. If I'm not mistaken, I can find it real quick.
I prefer peer-reviewed if you haven't.
Well, they don't do carbon dating on peer reviewed because it's in the secular scientists don't do carbon-14 because it's not supposed to be there. So it's an expensive test to do on something you believe that doesn't exist. So they don't have it.
So have people with that are have people looked over this Answers in Genesis finding and found that it is legitimate?
Yeah, they'll say that it's
credible scientists in the field.
That's why they say leaching. That's their contention is if these creationists are finding carbon-14 in the dinosaur bone. I always love it when the science don't match it and you just go, well, these creationists are clearly lying they got an agenda, when I can literally take you to the science that has an agenda that literally just the papers themselves prove that these things can't happen, and yet you'll still believe that dinosaurs can last for 65 million years when the scientifically peer-reviewed paper is giving you the evidence that it can't. We know what the half-life of DNA is.
This is
DNA is 527. It can't.
Or not.
I can get, so if you want the carbon-14, I can't give you one over them finding carbon-14 in it because the secular scientists don't do it. But if you would like me to give you a peer-reviewed on the DNA, I can absolutely do that, where they're finding DNA fragments inside of dinosaurs, and that's even worse for you than carbon because DNA has a half-life of 527 years. So if you like that, I can absolutely play that game with you because it's the peer-reviewed
would imply
scientist.
that the Earth is less old than you think it is, though.
No, it would imply that dinosaurs lived a lot less than 65 million years ago.
If
dinosaurs living
is
4,500 years ago has nothing to do with the age of the
years?
Earth.
What
The half-life of
percentages are they
DNA is
finding in them? That
very
would-
small. Very small.
What percentage?
They don't put a percent on it. In the paper, they don't put a
Okay,
percent
so they
on
found like one piece of DNA? Like,
it. Well, they don't. it's one piece of DNA. DNA is a strand, so I don't know what you mean by one piece. But
like one AG pair.
It wouldn't
is what
matter
I was
if they're
referring
finding DNA. It can't be there. I like how you guys are like, oh, it's just a small amount. Yes, it is. I never said it was dripping with blood. It's a very small amount of DNA, which is fit our prediction. 4,500 years ago, you shouldn't find but anything but just fragments of DNA. 65 million years ago, you shouldn't be able to find any DNA, not small amounts, any DNA. The half-life is 527 years. There's no way for it to go. It goes from a half, then it goes to a quarter, then it goes to an eighth, a 16th, a 32nd,
It never
a
gets to
64th.
zero.
Well,
Like,
technically it never gets to zero, but you can't find any of it past 65 million years, clearly.
Okay, I would love to see this paper of finding dinosaur DNA.
Sure.
I would also suspect that that paper proposes why the dinosaur DNA is in there. Did you read it?
Yep.
Does it propose why the dinosaur DNA is in there?
Yep. And when you go to that paper, the paper says this is not the reason. So evidence of proteins, chromosomes. Brother, I love your condescending laughs. I love them because this is what I do to you guys. When you have your condescending laughs, I demolish you guys. When I actually take you to the papers, I smash you cats. So let's find out who's laughing at the end of this, okay?
The last paper you tried to give me was Answers in Genesis. I don't...
Okay, let's see if you're still laughing after this, okay?
Please.
The name of the paper is Evidence of Proteins, Chromosome, and Chemical Markers of DNA in Exquisitely Preserved Dinosaur Cartilage 2020. Doctor's name is Mary Schweitzer. She's also the same one that found dinosaur soft tissue.
All right. Found the paper. Okay. And what are you saying that's in this paper? There is DNA strands?
They're finding the chemical marker, or they're finding the chemical markers of DNA. Yep. And so it literally states in the abstract here, the data supporting the hypothesis that calcified cartilage is for this. This is where they demineralized it. You wasn't aware of this, but what they do is they demineralize the bone, and then that's what the soft tissue is. Levels in Mesozoic material and suggests that the remnants of once living, don't know, I'm not going to try to say that word, I'm going to mess it up, including their DNA, may be preserved for millions of years. So the paper literally starts off in the abstract telling you that they believe that their DNA is being preserved for millions of years. Now, the problem is obviously we know what the half-life of DNA is, so just because you believe it, I don't care. You can continue to read on in the paper, but it literally states that they use two chemical markers, PI and DAPI. It's not one, but two different methods in an effort to these chemicals react in the presence of DNA. And for you to get a reaction out of the DNA, it has to be at least 6 base pairs in length and double helix. That's a DNA strand. And it literally states that they argue that this not only supports that the compounds within the cells is chemically consistent with DNA, but the material is double-stranded and at least a minimum base pairs of 6. It's dinosaur in origin. And they go on to tell you that this contamination is not a plausible explanation in this case. And to this date, the possible preservation of original proteins and DNA in deep time has not been convincingly eliminated with data. So they're finding the DNA inside of this dinosaur, brother. They're not sequencing. It's not a lot, but it is DNA. If you're looking for the mechanism, go down to the bottom of the conclusion and look at the last words. That'll give you the mechanism that they believe is the mechanism that I'm going to help you out. Cross-linking it may be another mechanism.
What, DNA staining? Yeah.
Well, that's not that's how they found it. Is the stain the mechanism they're claiming that gets it to last for 65 million years is at the bottom of the conclusion.
But that's a DNA stain versus finding DNAs. You understand that's different claims, right?
You understand that the paper is literally claiming that they found DNA, although the extensive research and sequencing is required. They
claims
can't
it found DNA.
Everything I just read to you. You can go to the conclusion. The conclusion right here. In the middle of it, it says contamination because a lot of people is going to say that the markers are reacted to contaminated. It's DNA, but it's contaminated. So it literally says that contamination is not a plausible explanation in this case, and the data supports the preservation of original proteins and DNA. So it's not DNA markers, it's DNA. Now, the next sentence right there actually says that they have to go on. Further research is required to sequence it. And I would agree with you that they have not sequenced it. That's not my claim. I never claimed that they're sequencing this stuff. My claim is that they found DNA. That's what this paper's clearly showing you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says, right, like I said at the bottom, we propose that the DNA. So if again, this paper is clearly calling it DNA, and then they give a mechanism as to why they think that what could preserve it for 65 million years.
Okay. And why should I have a problem with this?
Hey, can I chime in real quick? Sorry.
If it's on topic, brother.
Yeah. So I've been listening for a while, and you've been saying that this paper claims that they found DNA, but I just did a little research myself. They never found DNA. They found fragments of protein molecules and blood vessels.
That's double. No, you're looking at the soft tissue. That's the soft tissue one. That's where they found fragments of soft tissue, the soft tissue. We're on to DNA now, brother. It literally states in the paper that it's double helix and at least 6 base pairs. That's DNA, not proteins.
It's DNA stains.
That for it to be able to stain, God, I got to read this to you guys again. For it to be able to stain, it literally supports that the compound within the cells is not only chemically consistent with DNA, but the material is double-stranded and at least a minimum of 6 base pairs. That's DNA.
They didn't. I think you're misinterpreting the paper.
Oh my goodness!
They did not find DNA in the cells. They found DNA stains. That
right.
When
so then they say that
the DNA stains shows that it is double helix.
I'm so confused. So the DNA stains for it to work shows that it's double helix, but then they're not finding DNA?
So imagine we're at a murder scene and you find
like a molecular fingerprint.
Does that mean we found the victim's body or we found a blood stain? That indicates there was a victim's body.
That's not analogous. If the stains react, for it to react to DNA, let's imagine for this, you shine a black light on it. If there's no DNA present, it doesn't glow in the dark. If there's DNA present, it glows in the dark. That's not the same as saying we know that you know who the person is, but what you know is that it attached to DNA. You know DNA's there, even though it might not be enough to sequence. You know DNA's there. So
is this
they're
the same
finding
thing like
DNA.
a molecular fingerprint, like the difference of saying I found DNA versus RNA, single strand, double strand? Is that what you're talking about?
It's a very small amount. 6 base pairs and double helix is not enough to sequence. It's an extremely small amount. That's not my claim. My claim is just solely that they're finding DNA. And in 65 million years, you shouldn't be able to find it. And please don't tell me again that they're not claiming that they're finding it when the paper literally gives a mechanism as to why it's preserving so long if they're not finding it. It wouldn't make no sense. It's exactly what they're claiming. They're claiming that they're finding dinosaur DNA.
Well, let me ask you this. See if you know about this. Do you know they're finding nucleic acids on asteroids?
Yes. Brother, I said it has to be on topic, okay?
But that just makes you think, if something like that, a base nucleic acid, can survive in space for how long, why wouldn't dinosaur DNA?
Because that's not life, though. That wasn't life created. It's just amino acids, okay? So like I said, we got to stay on topic or I'm going to have to move on. DNA is a code.
It's a building block. Yeah, but what is it comprised of?
That's great. I don't care about the. You can tell me what it's comprised of all day long. I would agree with you. but the materials that it's just like making a cake, right? All of the ingredients by themselves are just ingredients, but the moment you put them together, they're cake. So you can say the DNA is made out of these different ingredients. Great, I don't care. But once it's together, it's DNA. So here's my claim. Again, they're finding DNA in dinosaurs. There you go. That's my claim. This paper right here unequivocally supports it without a doubt.
Okay. Cool. And how does that support your greater premise of the Earth is not how old do you think it is?
Wait. Now we're not going to the Earth. Don't run off the Earth. We talked about dinosaurs
I
not being
guess?
65. Yep, because now I can take you to a separate paper that shows the DNA rates of decay within the dinosaurs. If you like, I can take you to that one, and it shows that the half-life is 527 years, meaning that it cannot last to 65 million years. So if they're finding it in dinosaur bones that are 65 million years old, then you either have to A, have a preservation method that gets it out there, or B, it's not 65 million years old, right?
Well, most of the bones aren't bones anymore. They're turned to stone.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that insight. So, again, let me ask you this again. If you're finding DNA in dinosaur bones that are supposed to be 65 million years, and we know what the half-life is, you only got two options. I just want to make sure we agree with this. Either one option is you have to have a mechanism that gets the decay rate out to 65 million years, or two, the dinosaurs didn't live 65 million years ago, right? That's the two options we agree on, right?
A method that extends the decay rate? I wouldn't agree with that exact wording. But generally, the idea is, yeah, sure.
It's either going to be you have a method that gets the DNA out to 65 million years, or the dinosaurs didn't live 65 million years ago. Right?
For this specific paper, there's multiple options. I would say
Man,
there's
you
also a third
dancing,
option.
you dancing, bro. Go get your shoes on, get your tap shoes on, because now you're dancing. It's kind of funny how you went from laughing condescendingly to now you're dancing and you can't answer simple questions.
I can laugh
Clearly, if
condescendingly
we
actually
know
more
what,
if you like it,
bro. Please, I'm eating it up. You're gonna make my highlight reel. So now you can't even answer simple questions because it's like you're scared to death, like you're gonna get
It
trapped.
is quite hard to answer simple questions.
Well, how about you just answer the simple questions?
I was, and then you talked over me.
Okay, so let's go again. Just make sure, because I don't want to move on from this.
It's also a viable method. This paper claims that there weren't inclusions, but they could be wrong. That's also a viable method to get that DNA there.
Okay, but it literally states that contamination is not plausible in this one. So contamination is not going to help you out.
Did you listen to what I said?
Yes, the inclusions would allow in contamination, right? That's the point. The inclusions would allow in contamination, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when the paper says it's not plausible, you just saying, no, it's plausible, doesn't help you out none, right?
Did you hear what I said? I said they could just be wrong. That is plausible.
Nuh-uh. Yeah, so your argument now is nuh-uh. Congratulations. Nuh-uh.
I can't believe the fucking creationist is saying that to me. But what's it called? I mean, I don't know. I haven't read the peer reviews on this paper. There could be peer reviews that look at their methods and say, "Hey, you missed this one thing. There was actually contamination."
This lady's got a pretty good track record. She's the one that also found dinosaur soft tissue when they called her a kook over that 20 years ago, and now that's commonplace.
Yeah, that's how science works. It changes and adapts. That's the beauty of science. When we find new evidence, we change our conclusions.
It sounds good, except you're finding evidence. Number one, the soft tissue evidence was found over 20 years ago. This also proves that it can't last 65 million years ago, but they're still claiming that they're 65 million years. So should we, A, go with the testable and observable science that clearly says the decay rates of collagen and the decay rates of DNA cannot get these things out to 65 million years, so therefore they didn't live 65 million years ago? Or should we go with column B and just say, well, I believe it by faith because I need dinosaurs to live millions of years ago? Which one of those should we go with? Testable and observable
when you set
science
up a false
or
dichotomy
inference?
like that, I can't possibly pick either answer.
Okay, so how is it false?
Because
do we know the decay rates of collagen?
The decay rates of collagen? No, you were talking about blind faith when you're talking about.
I'm asking you just now, like as far as
difference.
scientific papers, Do we know the decay rates of collagen? Like, have we done tests and know the decay rates of collagen and the decay rates of DNA? Okay, we done it on. We'll stay on DNA. Do we know the degradation rates of DNA?
Yeah.
Okay, so we know the degradation rates of DNA. We know that the half-life is 527 years. This is the half-life. So it cannot go out to 65 million years. Do you still believe that dinosaurs are 65 million years old?
Yes, because there's
Who's
more
going off with the
evidence.
faith?
So there's more. I've read more papers talking about the age of dinosaurs than this one paper that you presented.
I don't care. You can have all of these ages that you want, but you got all of this speculation that you guys have, like your geologic column or your radiometric dating,
How
which
is
you
that
have to make
speculation?
assumptions on, because you have to make assumptions on. Please don't make me repeat
Could you
all of
please
the
name
assumptions.
one thing you don't
on
have
the-
to make one assumption on?
Yeah, the decay rates of DNA. We can test and observe that.
So I just want to get you here. You think that you don't have to make any assumptions. Technically, you also have to make uniformitarianism assumptions on the decay rate of DNA, but you don't have to make the uniformitarianism assumption on the decay rate of DNA.
Well, so let's define it very carefully. When you're saying
You got caught.
extrapolations, or I didn't get caught. I promise you. I'm asking you for clarification. Are you talking about reasonable extrapolations, or are you talking about assumptions?
Those are the
Because
same
I think-
things in a lot of scientific cases.
Well, if you're saying that, can we extrapolate reasonable things? Like we've already been through this. Like, I conceded that with 50,000 years of radiometric decay, that it would be a reasonable assumption to say that radiometric decay is because we've watched it for 100 years, that we could extrapolate that it stays the same in 50,000. I said that's reasonable. But then I also said it's not reasonable for it to extrapolate that it stays the same over 1 billion. I think that that's unreasonable because the amount of time gap is just too large. So if
Why?
you're saying that, what do you mean why?
You just
Because
said
we've only
because
observed
time
it
is
for
bigger,
100
it's
years.
unreasonable. Why does
What
time
is-
getting bigger make it unreasonable?
Because we don't know all the. We've already had that conversation. I'm not looking to
No,
go
we
back to
haven't.
it because you feel like, yeah, we did. Just because you feel like you're getting slapped on this one, you want to run off it as fast as you can.
So you're running
So
from
we
my
know the decay
question
rates
because you feel
I'm
like you're
not.
getting
We've
slapped on
literally already talked about the radiometric decay rates. Did we not?
No, we didn't. I think you're
right.
hallucinating. We talked
Okay,
about
have a good day.
uranium lead.
Have a good day, brother.
Inclusions.
Nah, get off.
but-
We just said we talked about uranium lead. That's radiometric decay, dummy. No, we didn't talk about radiometric decay. We talked about uranium and lead. That's radiometric decay, stupid. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. All right, Ham, what's up, man?
Yo, I've been on here before, by the way.
Cool, man. Welcome back.
Hey, man. So earlier you were saying that you think that the Earth is less than 10,000 years. Is that correct?
Well, I said I believe that. It's not something like, honest answer, I don't know how old the Earth is. But I would say that it's probably less than 10,000 years.
So I understand you have your reservations when it comes to like carbon dating. But have you heard of the civilization called Göbekli Tepe they found in Turkey?
Mm-hmm.
You have heard of them.
Yeah.
Are you familiar how old they say it?
Yeah, but it's the dating techniques. What's funny about Göbekli Tepe is the amount of, there's only been less than 10% of it excavated, and what they found now is these T-pillars that have all of these different animals on it that's not native to the area. And one of the ways that they're dating it is they find stuff like, I'm going off the top of my head, so I'm making this up as a to show you this is what they're doing. So don't look this up and say that I was wrong about this animal. This is what they're doing. So for example, like the
Hold on a second.
flamingo,
Hold on a second. I'm going to be in the elevator. I'll be right back. Hold on.
well, how long you wait, man? I got other guests. I'm not. I'm making a
I mean, you could go to.
I'm not in a rush. Don't worry.
yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm using a scenario here. So I'm making the scenario up in an effort to show you what they're doing. So if you can walk, it's called using an analogy. So if you can't walk with that, whoever's in the comments, then this page is probably not for you because I'm not going to be able to hold your hand through it. But what they're doing is they're finding like the animals that are carved on the side of these T-pillars. And they're saying like the flamingo, right? They're like, whoa, the flamingo was only native here 10,000 years ago. So therefore it has to be 10,000 years old because why would a flamingo be here, right? So that's one of the ways that they're dating this. Not the only way, but it's one of the ways. Now, what's funny about Göbekli Tepe is when you go there, they have all of these different animals that's carved on the side of the rock. And literally in the background, would you know what mountain is there in the background of Turkey?
What?
Has he come back yet?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so, well, I'm going to move on to the next guest. But the mountain that's in the background of Göbekli Tepe is literally Mount Ararat. It's the mountain where God said the Bible says that the ark landed on the mountains of Ararat. And then you have a civilization down at the bottom of that has all of these different animals on it that's not native to the area. Ooh, I wonder how they've seen all these different animals. It's crazy to me how all of these different archaeological sites confirm the Bible. There's never been an archaeological site that goes against the Bible. They all confirm the Bible. And then people's like, man, this thing is way older.
Wait, what's that one site where
bro?
they claim that it was Noah's Ark, like the ship?
That's the Mount Ararat, yeah.
Yeah, they claim that, but they found that it's not made of petrified wood. So, and if it was made of wood, which it says in the Bible, it would be made of wood. So, what's that?
Well, yeah, but it wouldn't be petrified. So nobody's claiming that it would
if it's
still
old
be
enough.
wood today. What?
Because I live in Arizona, so I've been to the petrified forest before, and they've educated me on if old wood were to just sit out like that, it would turn into petrified wood. Basically, it crystallizes.
Or it would rot into organic material, which is the claim today. They're not claiming that there would be any petrified wood. So either if it doesn't petrify, then it's going to be left in organic material. So the wood would be replaced. It would rot away and basically turn into dirt, basically. And the test that they're finding now. Here's my thing. I don't know if it's the Ark or not. I never claimed that it is, but we got to be intellectually honest about what they're claiming and what they're not claiming. So there is claims that they found metal rivets all over the site, right? You can go look at the different museums that have these metal rivets that were found at that same site. So the wood would decay away into organic material, but clearly the metal rivets wouldn't. And then secondly, they're claiming that if the boat collapsed in like this, then the top parts would fall in on itself. So you should have more organic material in the middle than you would on the outsides. And that's exactly what they're claiming at that site. Now, I don't know if it's Noah's Ark or not. I wouldn't make that claim until the evidence comes out. But we just got to be intellectually honest with what they're claiming so that we don't step out over our skis and say they're wrong or they're right.
Well, what you were saying earlier is that they found dinosaur DNA. That's just plain false. They've never found dinosaur DNA. They found like type 1 collagen from I forgot, it was like Hyperosaurus or something. And it was under certain conditions where they were able to preserve that, but they never found actual dinosaur DNA ever.
The name of the paper is called Evidence of Proteins, Chromosome, and Chemical Markers of DNA in Exquisitely Preserved Dinosaur Cartilage, 2020.
Yes, markers. That's not DNA itself. That's markers that DNA has.
When you go to the paper, this is literally copied and paste what the paper says. This not only supports that the compounds within the cell is chemically consistent with DNA, but the material is double-stranded in at least minimum 6 base pairs. That's DNA. Right? They also state that they give a mechanism that supports. It says, we propose that the DNA condensation may be favorable process for its fossilization. So they're literally claiming that this is DNA, brother. When people go there and they read the very first word of what?
What's the paper called?
The paper's called, I'll go back up to the top, Evidence of Proteins, Chromosome, and Chemical Markers of DNA in Exquisitely Preserved Dinosaur Cartilage. When people always read the very first thing of that highlight and they say it's It's not DNA. Now, let me be very clear with my claim and what they're claiming. They're allowed to the reason why they're not coming out and claiming 100% DNA instead of calling it DNA markers is because they can't sequence it. But that's not my claim. I'm not claiming that they're finding sequenceable DNA. I'm claiming that they found DNA. And when you read the paper, that is the conclusion that you come to. The paper literally states, and this is the abstract that tells you what the paper is going to be about. Our data supports the hypothesis that the calcified cartilage is preserved at the molecular level in this Mesozoic material and suggests that remnants of their DNA may be preserved for millions of years. So they're finding DNA. It just boggles my mind when people come in here and claim that they're not, and I take them to the paper that literally reads that they are.
Wait, well, who is it by?
This is a hypothesis, though. This is
Mary Schweitzer.
Mary Schweitzer. Okay, I'll be back.
What do you mean it's a hypothesis? This is the paper. They put two chemical markers inside the dinosaur cell with a nuclear.
No, I just looked at the article. They said this is
no, brother. The hypothesis, though, you didn't. I'll read it again. Our data supports the hypothesis that calcified cartilage is preserved at the molecular level in Mesozoic material and suggests that their DNA may be preserved for millions of years. The hypothesis is that the DNA is being preserved for millions of years, meaning that they're finding DNA, so they're proposing that it's lasting for millions of years.
So
that's the
again,
hypothesis.
that's just a hypothesis. It's not a fact.
Is it a fact that they're finding the DNA with the two chemical markers?
You literally are saying they have a hypothesis
Oh my gosh.
that they're finding DNA.
The hypothesis, because they're finding DNA, the hypothesis is that if you read down at the bottom, talking about iron cross-linking is the mechanism that helps it preserve for 65 million years.
This is
Here's
why
the fact.
science you have to
The
get
fact-
peer reviewed. You read one article.
This is the peer review. This is a peer reviewed scientifically paper right here. This was out in 2020. This is peer reviewed, Hero. The fact is they're finding it. Then they come up with a hypothesis as to why it preserves for so long. But the facts are still on my side. They're still finding it. That's the fact. Go to the paper. They literally go to the nucleus of a cell, which is where the DNA is at. They put in one chemical marker, they get a reaction. And they're like, wait a minute, let's double check it because we don't want to just use one chemical marker. So they use another chemical marker. That chemical marker, and for it to work, it needs to be double helix and at least 6 base pairs in length. That's DNA. Now that they found it, they're like, how do we come up with a mechanism to get it to last for 65 million years? That's the hypothesis. Yeah, Jay, 100%. And then I got somebody in the comments saying that it also binds with this, this, and this, and that's true. And that's why the paper literally states that contamination is not an issue here. So when people say that these chemical markers could also bind to something else and get a reaction, that's reasonable. But not according to this paper, if you want to go with the science, because the science literally states contamination is not a plausible explanation in this case. And to this date, the possible preservation of original proteins and DNA in deep time. So why are they saying DNA if it's not DNA? It's clearly DNA. All right, my man at the top. What's up, brother?
Nothing much, you, man.
I mean, I'm hanging in there, man. What you got?
Yeah, I want a quick question, bro. They say, I heard you talking about dinosaurs, right?
Yeah, I was.
I'm a big fan of dinosaurs, bro. Believe me, so I've done a lot of research and everything. And it's very difficult to basically, to believe whether dinosaurs exist or not, whether they are real fossils out there, and everything. And they say
Well,
that
they were real.
they're not only that they dinosaurs, but they say they're dragons, They say they took
Yeah,
the
the Bible
wings
calls
out
them dragon, yeah.
and then they just left. Is it?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Oh, that's
dinosaurs are in the
shocking.
Bible, so I don't go with the crowd that says dinosaurs never existed. Dinosaurs are in the Bible, so.
Wait, Wait, in what verse is it?
Job 40, verse 15. So Job chapter 40, verse 15, it says, "Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee. He eateth the grass as an ox," and talks about he's the chief of the ways of God. He's one of the biggest animals God ever made. It talks about he can drink up an entire river, but not just any river, the Jordan River. It says if you can't bring a sword unto him because how big this animal is. It says that his strength is in the navel of his belly. Talks about how big his belly is. And it says it has a tail like a cedar tree. So the cedar trees of Lebanon were literally some of the biggest trees ever. So the only attribute that an animal would fit on all of these things that Behemoth is described as having would only be a sauropod dinosaur. It's really big. It's the biggest animal God ever made. It can drink up a river, and it has a tail as big as a tree. That would be a sauropod dinosaur.
And what about the Leviathan?
Yes, I would
Isn't
believe
it a
that's a
dinosaur?
dinosaur too. Yeah. I don't know what kind of dinosaur. There's not enough given on that one for me to know. I know that it's whatever it is. It's it can
Because
go
I
in the
remember in
water.
the Bible they say that you might. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
They say
No.
God basically killed the female Leviathan so they don't breed. You see.
Yeah.
I don't know what verse it says that, but it says somewhere
Well, it
there
talks about
that
it's going to happen at the end of time too, right? Yeah.
you can't predict that now when the end of time is, right?
Right. No, I couldn't. My point about Leviathan though,
okay.
it can go in water and on land, and it can breathe fire. So I don't know
Yeah,
what.
no, because I'm seeing a lot of people saying no. Google, it's showing on Google Maps the Leviathan's head. What? You see what I mean?
Okay.
So yeah, nah, that's basically it. Just wanted to ask that as well.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming, brother.
If you
Appreciate
have
you.
other guests, yeah, no, I appreciate it too, man.
All right, brother. God bless. All right, you guys
God bless you
noticed how.
too, man.
Thank you, man.
And don't
Appreciate
give
you.
up.
All right, yeah, man. Thanks for the encouragement.
So,
Oh, my thing's falling down here. If y'all noticed, what's funny is those individuals they went on teacupping so they could go look at the information that I was giving them, and then they left. So I guess they figured out what I said was true, and they didn't want to contend with it. I didn't kick them. They were free to come up here, but they left. That was fun with that one guy, though. He had that real condescending laugh there for a minute, like I didn't know what I was talking about. I love dog walking these guys when they do that. I much prefer a good conversation. I much prefer for us to sit down and talk about the facts, and then we can even disagree vehemently. That's fine. But when you get condescending and then think that I'm not going to eat your lunch, you're going to be wrong. And to God be the glory. This stuff's not hard. It's not me. It's all I have to do is defend what God said. It's not hard for me to do that, right? All I got to do is defend what God said, and makes me look good, right?
Okay, I read the study. So
Welcome back.
Mary Schweitzer actually used to be a young Earth creationist and later began to be an old Earth creationist through her data. And she made a quote herself saying, "Young Earth creationists manipulate her data to make it fit their theological narrative." And he said that there's specific something to do with iron that blocks enzymes from breaking down
cross-linking.
the cellulose so that it's able to be preserved for longer. So I think you're just misinterpreting or misrepresenting the data.
Okay, let's find out. So Mary Schweitzer said that I know what you're talking about, but Mary Schweitzer can hate my guts if she wants. I'm not saying she does. But if she would, it don't matter. I could care less. I went to the science. So what I did is I went to the peer-reviewed paper, and then you went to someone's opinion. So let's find out. So you said
no. I went to the creator of that study's opinion,
I don't care.
Which is
she's
the
allowed to
source
have
of
her
the
own
whole thing.
opinion.
I don't care
I
about
went
some
to the
random peer
science.
review who interprets it in a different way.
I don't care about the paper. I care about what her opinion is. So if the paper
No,
says that it's
I care about
65 million years,
the
I'm going to
person
go
who
with her
created the
opinion
paper
over the paper.
was.
Let's find out. So ask, since you looked at this now, ask Google for the source. So I don't want to take you there. I don't want to tell you what the name of it is. Ask it for yourself of the, since Mary Schweitzer, the scientifically peer-reviewed paper about the iron cross-linking.
Yes, exactly.
Ask it for, okay.
Iron cross-linking.
Okay, so go to the paper. Ask Google for the paper that Mary Schweitzer did on iron cross-linking. Let's find out if I'm misrepresenting her paper or not.
Okay. Was it actually written by her?
Yep.
Okay. Are you looking it up right now, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I want you to do it. I know where it's at, but I don't want to.
But what does that have to do if she herself says that she believes
we're going to find out,
creationist, and then she looked at the data and found?
I don't know if she was the young Earth creationist. I think that's the exact opposite. But let's just go to the paper and see if I'm misrepresenting her, because her opinion can be one thing. But so far, what I've done is went to the paper. So let's go to the paper and determine if I'm misrepresenting her or not.
Okay, so what was the paper called again? It was pretty.
I don't want to tell you the name of the paper. You're the one. If I give you the name of the paper, I'm leading you there. I want you to look up the name of the paper that Mary Schweitzer did on iron cross-linking, because it's going to seem like I'm leading you there if I'm the one that's taking you there.
Okay.
Because I'm going to show you that I'm not misrepresenting her. I'm actually just reading her verbatim. And me reading her verbatim in the paper is not me misrepresenting her. There's that pen. I was looking for that pen all over the place earlier. You just type in Google for a scientific the source, Mary Schweitzer's cross-linking paper.
Where was it? Who was it published by?
Mary Schweitzer. You're the one that said
Himself?
she
Normally
said that I was.
They use normally they don't publish it themselves. They use some news website.
Well, I know, but you said I your claim is that she's claiming that I'm misrepresenting her, so I want to go to her paper. Okay. So the iron cross-linking paper.
Like what,
okay,
who published it?
Mary Schweitzer. The name of the paper is called a roll. What?
I'm saying like where do I find it?
It depends. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. You can find it on PubMed a lot of the time.
Okay.
But what you can do is just go to an AI or Google and say, give me the source for Mary Schweitzer's iron cross-linking paper, and it'll give you a link. And then all you gotta do is just click on the link, and it'll take you there. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. That's my fault. Oh man, this is going to take forever for me to just show him that I'm not misrepresenting her. You never left. I didn't kick you, brother. Maybe Google's be tripping, but I didn't remove you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the article, and it pretty much is stating that packed DNA fragments, that the hypothesis is that due to not having water erosion or any kind of contamination, they believe that DNA can survive longer. Do you agree with that?
Thank you, man. Yeah. I believe that they're finding DNA, yeah.
So basically what they're saying, if true, because it's still a hypothesis, that DNA can survive longer. So wouldn't that go hand in hand with the timeline of dinosaurs?
Well, they're not claiming DNA; they're claiming cellulose. So they're
just sticking with the hypothesis that the article's stating.
Hold on, we're going in two different directions. So have you found the cross-linking paper yet?
Yes, I did.
What's the name of the paper?
It's like the role of iron and oxygen in the.
There you go. Yeah, iron and oxygen chemistry play in preserving soft tissue. I didn't want to take you there because I didn't want to lead you. Read the very first words of the abstract. He's going to read it to himself. He can't look at it. All right, come back on. I can't hear you when you're
the persistence of soft tissues
Yeah,
in Mesozoic fossils are not explained by current chemical models or something like that.
Yeah, look up here. There you go. I'm not misrepresenting Mary Schweitzer. That's literally what the paper says. The paper.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're saying just because it can't be explained, therefore it's.
The paper says in the very first words of the paper, I can take you to more. I promise you. I'm not cherry picking. I can take you to more.
Okay, wait.
So
Yeah,
it
saying
literally
that,
states that this
because
doesn't
she's
fit
making
current chemical degradation rates.
Because she made a new discovery. Of course, science is not going to solve that because she's the one who discovered it. There's no.
This is
information
the
on it before.
paper
So
that Google sent you to that you found and said this is the mechanism. The paper that you went to that says this is the mechanism. The paper that you go to says this is not the mechanism.
No. She wrote this, and she says it's not explained by modern chemical models. So she
Current
found out
chemical
how
degradation
it works.
rate.
So she's the one who discovered it and how it works. So she made a paper based on that. She just said at the beginning, in the past, we don't know why this happened. So she did research
you're
and
adding
she
that
found out why.
disclaimer. No, it doesn't. The reason why the paper is saying a role that it plays, you got to look at the way that they word these
Yes,
things.
exactly.
So
The role,
I'm not-
which means that she's making the discovery that
That means, brother, I need you to calm down for a second. Okay.
Sorry.
That means that when it says that role, that means that there's other factors in play, meaning that iron cross-linking can't do it by itself, so it plays a role.
Okay.
That's what that means.
And what's your explanation?
So when it says that iron cross-linking doesn't fit current chemical degradation models, it means that iron cross-linking by itself cannot get it out to 65 million years. In science talk, that means we don't know how this is happening.
Okay, so what's your explanation? Technically, you have the burden of proof because you're
It's
making
not
the claim against the
65
consensus.
million years old. That's my explanation.
Oh my God.
There's
Do you
no
have evidence for this?
mechanism.
Do you believe? Do you have evidence that that's like that because that automatically
Sure,
becomes
absolutely.
young Earth?
Yeah, here's my evidence. You keep going to Earth because you want. I didn't say Earth. I wouldn't say that dinosaurs
I'm calling you
living.
young Earth creationist because you believe evolution.
Okay, that's fair enough. But I'm not. This is not the Earth. We're talking about dinosaurs right now. So here's my evidence that dinosaurs did not live 65 million years ago. Here's my evidence. They unalived in a flood 4,500 years ago because 1, they're fossilized, and 2, we can find their DNA in soft tissue. That's the whole reason we've been here.
We see cellulose. She claims herself that it's not DNA. It's cellulose that has micro sequences, not full DNA.
You got to get off. Now you got to get off on stage. Have a good day. Thank you for coming. Thank you for trying. But you have been demolished, sir. All right, brother. I do appreciate you coming back and actually stating that, yes, the paper is claiming DNA. Thank you. That actually takes that's a reasonable response from someone that's actually looking at the information. So I do commend you on actually being a man and saying that. I appreciate it.
But my whole takeaway from this, though, again, this is a hypothesis. She's basically stating that this cross-linking and DNA condensing, I'm not sure if that's the right wording.
Yeah.
She's believing that DNA is thought to survive longer than, I believe it was 520 years or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So why would it be inconceivable to think that, okay, that this DNA that they possibly found is not millions of years old?
So you see how their worldview and the way that you just stated, I want you to continue to be as intellectually honest as you have been. So you see how the worldview now is contaminating their thought process. They know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is 65 million years old, and nothing they find is ever going to change that. That's not how you do science. You don't go into it with a preconceived notion. And if you do, because everybody has their biases, you have to be intellectually honest enough to say, this doesn't fit my bias, so I have to change my bias. You cannot keep 65 million. You can't find DNA that you know can't last 65 million years old. And then when you find it, you go, now we have to find a mechanism that gets it out to 65 million years. That's not
Hold
how
on.
science works.
If you are correct, and this article is correct, we should be finding dinosaur DNA way more frequently, because I'm looking it up right now, and there is no verified intact dinosaur DNA has ever been found. So this
Well, the way that
small fragment that they found from a duck-billed dinosaur is mainly cartilage, and it is preserved because it has no water contamination, and that's it.
that's the hypothesis. But you still got a problem. It still can't last 65 million years
How can you prove that?
because of the degradation rates, guys. Come on.
But this is why science is fun, because you find one discovery and it takes you further. All right.
But so here's the thing about the soft tissue, right? So she made this discovery about 5 years ago. Other people will start to replicate her study, and then it will become commonplace. It's taken 20 years for it to become commonplace for people to replicate the study on the soft tissue, right? At first, she was the only person for years that was able to get soft tissue out of dinosaur bones. And people were claiming that it's this one-off. But then no, when she said, here's my method, this is what I did, then other people were able to copy that method and also extract soft tissue out of that. So now it's commonplace. Now getting soft tissue out of dinosaur bones, I'm not going to say that it happens every day, but it's commonplace. It happens relatively a lot. It's not something that's rare as you think it is anymore. A lot of people are doing it. Creationists are doing it. Secular scientists are doing it. It's not as rare as people once thought it was anymore. So she just found dinosaur, quote unquote, DNA. The next step, I would agree with you, would be to sequence it. And that's what they even say in the paper. It's going to take a while, but I do believe within the next 20 years, they will have sequenceable dinosaur DNA. This is just the first step. Now, once they improve the method about how to do
Park's
it,
going to be a real thing. I don't think so.
I do. Yeah, absolutely. I think that once you get sequenceable DNA, and the way that we're moving forward with genetics, I think that people will be able to clone things. I mean, we're already at cloning, so all you got to do is find something that's close to that original kind.
The closest thing we've come to cloning that I know of is like a woolly mammoth.
Yeah, but
that's another thing.
So
how old do you think the Ice Age was? Like all these animals, the woolly
Well,
mammoth,
it had to be within the last 6,000 years. But we're still getting off topic. But even if they can't, they still got to sequence the DNA. But they're finding DNA. The next step would be to sequence it. So here's my overall point. You don't when science, you have a theory. Your theory makes predictions. If your predictions are wrong, then you figure out why your predictions are wrong. Maybe your theory's wrong, or maybe there's some other reason for your predictions being wrong. But what you don't get to do is just move to the next step because you're wrong. Evolution does this all the time. And the scientists that you're talking about right now, Mary Schweitzer is no friend of young Earth creationists, right? She complains about us all the time using her science. Sorry, but at the end of the day, you don't get to keep the millions of years model when you're finding evidence that goes against it. That's not how science works. That's how a religion works. A religion says, I'm going to believe this no matter what the science says. Now, you can say that there might be this unknown mechanism that they might find later, but right now that's a faith statement. As it sits right now, they do not have a mechanism to get soft tissue out to 65 million years. They do not have a mechanism to get dinosaur DNA out to 65 million years. So if you're going to go with the science right now today and not faith, then you go with the science. We know what the degradation rates are. It's not like there's no evidence and we're taking a guess. We know what the degradation rates are, and we know that they can't last that long. So therefore, when we're finding it, we can't just automatically assume that it's millions of years old, na boo boo, I don't want to hear you. That's not how science works.
You see, I don't know why there's a problem with, calling yourself, Christian, whatever religious denomination you want to have, and still following science and using science to understand the world that we live in.
That's what I'm doing.
I don't agree with you with the age of the earth. The number one thing that I have a problem with, What do you say to the date of the KT boundary? You know, that boundary they find across the world.
Hydrologic sorting. So they use index fossils to date these things. Those cannot be millions of years apart if you have a polystrate fossil that connects all the layers, my man.
They've also done radiometric dating using argon and showed that the decay rate shows anything that was above it. It's proven science. I don't know where your problem is.
But it's not. That's not. So your decay rates go off of the same three fundamental problems, or your radiometric dating, every single one of them. You have to assume the parent material. You have to assume the decay rate remains constant. And 3, you have to assume that it's in a closed system, meaning that no leaching can happen. Leaching in and out of a system happens all over the planet.
Okay.
So if radiometric material can be brought in and taken out, then you cannot use The reason why they want you to use radiometric dating so much, the reason why scientists hang on to this so much, is because they can get the dates that they need out of it. If you need something to be really old, then you just sprinkle a little more radiometric material at the front. You go, okay, well, we see the parent material here, so we'll just believe that more was there present, and that's why the daughter material is this. It's all based on assumptions. So if you need it to be older, you add more parent material. If you need it to be younger, you take out less parent material. And you can just say that it leached out or leached in.
Well,
so
you're
you can literally just
looking
get the
at
age that you want out of these things.
Hold on. You're literally looking at 2 different eras on Earth. If you look above the KT area, you'll find older fossils, right? You go to the KT area, no life. You go below the KT area, you find a different form of life that is slightly younger. I don't think this is some conspiracy that all scientists are playing with the chemicals to make the numbers.
I don't either. That's literally just a layer. So you found a layer that has, again, I've already told you about how you would have, so evolution says that you started off with the Cambrian explosion, right? You have bacteria, Cambrian explosion, and then you have, that's crustacean like crabs and stuff like that. Then you have fish, amphibian, reptiles, mammals, birds. So that's how they say that they evolved. That's the line that they evolved. They say we started off as bacteria because they're at the bottom. And then the next layer up, you have crustaceans. And then the next layer up, fish, amphibian, reptile, bird, mammal. So that's how they say evolution happened. But that's how they would be buried because that's where they lived. You're going to find crustaceans at the bottom like crabs and all of these animals that are crustaceans at the bottom because they live at the bottom. So they're already going to be at the bottom.
But
so
the fact
if
of the
you have
matter
a
is
next
we have
layer that gets laid
evidence.
down and we lay this, we name this the KT boundary, and everything below it is crustacean and everything
Why
above
does
it is.
everything match up though? This KT boundary is
It
found
doesn't.
across the world. And
Well, no, it's not uniform across the world.
you could find it across the world, and it literally links up when you study the material. It's the same material, the iridium that came from the asteroid, and we found the crater in the Gulf of Mexico.
We
And
we
they
believe
tested
that too, brother. Yep, we believe that too. So that would get laid out uniformly in a flood. It's called hydrologic sorting. So I wouldn't disagree with you with that. I would just say that this happens fast. And again, you got polystrate fossils that literally prove that these layers are not millions of years apart from each other. It wouldn't matter if you say that everything's in this perfect layer and this is how we see it and it's all uniform. First of all, it's not. But even if I granted you that, polystrate fossils literally prove that these layers are not millions of years apart. A tree cannot sit in one layer and wait for 65 million years until it's slowly covered up by sediment. Can't happen. It'll rot away. So polystrate fossils show that these layers are not millions of years apart.
There have been too many animals, creatures that have come and gone in just 5,000 years. There are more extinct animals than alive animals right now. And you think everything died out in one flood.
That's what the evidence shows. Literally, if you unalive a cow out here and you go bury it in the ground, it's not going to fossilize. It takes very specific, special circumstances for it to fossilize. So let's take a look at these huge dinosaur bone beds like we have in the Morrison Formation and the Hells Creek Formation, which goes basically from the top of Mexico all the way across the United States and into parts of Canada. This is a dinosaur bone bed. Let's use Occam's razor. Is it more likely that it takes the least amount of assumptions to believe that these dinosaurs unalived millions of years apart from each other, millions of times from millions of individual flood events, because that's what happened. You need rapid sediment burial. So they're not even fighting the fact that these animals were unalived in a flood or buried in a flood, because that's what you need for fossilization. So is that more probable, or is it more likely that the animals unalived in one flood event got sorted out like you would in a flood? We see that floods push things and sort things together in the largest trash heap out in the Atlantic right now that they're cleaning up. People can drop your trash off anywhere in the ocean, and it usually ends up in this one huge trash heap. Not universally, but it just shows that sorting happens in water. So that these dinosaurs got laid down in this huge dinosaur boneyard and then got covered up with sediment as the waters went off. Which one takes the least amount of assumptions? Clearly, I'm going with the flood.
Nature doesn't work like that.
That's exactly how it works, actually.
No, nature doesn't work like that.
Well,
Everything's
saying
not predictable.
nuh-uh is not a refutation.
Everything's not predictable. Some things, like you have a problem with evolution, right? Can you agree that evolution is a process in nature?
I believe that microevolution is real, but anything
Okay.
outside of micro is
I'll
not
leave that.
testable
I'll
and
leave that alone
observable.
with you. But can you say now that certain calamities can force evolution and isolate certain organisms and make them adapt to the new environments that they're in?
I grant you microevolution. So adaptation is not a problem. Going from one kind of animal to another kind is a problem. There's no genetic information gain. Taking a trait and encouraging or discouraging the trait that already exists is not information gain.
That's just how can I put this? That's just the randomness of nature. Evolution is a thing that we observe, and it's something that we can control in a sense. Like all dogs are a product of man-made evolution. But
That's
you can
micro,
look-
though. You've taken traits that already existed. You've either encouraged or discouraged those traits. What happened is you have not put a trait that did not exist in the dog. Like, for example, you can take the wolf and breed it down to the Chihuahua. There's so much degradation there that it's not funny. You cannot take the Chihuahua and breed it back to the wolf because of the degradation. You can also not take a dog and breed it into a bird. So taking a trait and only allowing the smallest of the wolves to mate, eventually you'll get a really small dog. I would grant that. But you're not going to get a bird out of that because
it is
the bird
selective, but
information
you
is
don't
not there.
you don't account for mutations.
Yes, I do.
How you
It just
account
doesn't
for
get you new
mutations?
information. Because
Yeah,
I
and
believe
some
in mutations. I
are
think that's
favorable and some aren't.
That's right, but it's not going to give you new information. That's taking existing information and scrambling it up. Sometimes
so
in
hold on
certain
a second, hold on a
situations it
second.
helps, but it
Hold on a
doesn't. It
second.
doesn't add new information.
It's a fact that some people are born with webbed hands, right? It's a mutation. If for some reason we were on a water world and they had a better chance of being able to swim and survive in that environment, don't you think they would live on longer than people with normal hands?
Yes, that's not new information. Having skin between your fingers when you got skin on your hand is not new information. That's fine. You're taking skin and you're making more skin. That's not new information. That's literally existing information that's already there.
But this
Making
is
more
natural
skin.
selection and the process of natural
It's
selection.
still
period.
not new. I don't care however you put it. It's still not new information. That's why I'm very selective on when I talk to evolutionists. I'm very clear about what we need to see.
All
We
right,
need to
so
see
when you
genetic
say new
information gain,
information-
not existing information.
When you say new information, are you aware that something as simple, not even alive technically, as a virus can introduce new genetic material into an organism and cause these things?
Yep.
So that's new information right there.
Okay, can you give me an example?
I can't think of one right now, but maybe
Yeah, so most of the
let's
time
see.
what they're looking at when they're talking about the endogenous retrovirus. So when this happens, everyone that we've tested and observed, means ones that we've watched in real time, is detrimental. It's literally unaliving the koala bear population right now. You just infer that long ago and far away endogenous retroviruses became beneficial. So it is true that these viruses can introduce new information into or not new, it's literally existing information into your information. to a detriment. It's literally a problem. It's causing issues in the koala bear population. That's not gaining information. That's a detriment. If the koala bears keep evolving at this rate, they're going to go extinct, right?
So someone said this in the comments. It makes sense. You believe in micro evolution, but why exactly don't you believe in macro evolution?
No evidence. One
No
has evidence, the
evidence?
other one doesn't. Yeah, no evidence for macro.
And what would you call dinosaurs being wiped out and mammals taking over?
The flood.
Is that not a form of evolution?
No.
Then what would you call that?
The flood.
No. What would you call that process of let's say two dominant organisms living?
Brother,
One
let
gets
me
wiped
just
out.
explain to you what I believe evolution is so we don't got to keep going through these silly definitions. I believe in microevolution. I do not believe in macro. For macro to be true, I would need to see genetic information gain. Genetic because it's got to be passed on to its children, new information as far as new structures, new functions, new code, new DNA. And it'd have to be gained from something that wasn't there before. You and I would have to agree that if we went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human, this happened quadrillions of times.
All
Now,
right,
I would just
hold
like
on,
an
hold on.
example
Let's
of it.
stick with humans then.
Hold on. I just need an example of this happening that's testable and observable that's not inferred.
What would you say to human evolution itself with the evidence of our brains getting larger?
That's taking an existing information and making it bigger. It's not new information.
It's not new information.
Brother, I don't want to sound disrespectful. Please don't take this as disrespectful. But do you notice that you just keep repeating the same thing? Like you show me something that exists and then just say, how about more of it? Does that make it new information? Can you show me something new and not something that already existed? Like more skin or bigger brains. Okay, that doesn't show me the origins of brains. That doesn't show me that we didn't have a brain before and now we got a brain. You got to show me evolution, not a bigger brain. And then say, look, our brains got bigger.
Wait. How are you calling a simple brain into a complex brain?
You got to
not
show me that.
evolution?
That's my point. You got to
That
show
is
me
evolution.
that. You just said our brains getting bigger. Human brains getting bigger is not evolution. That's existing information. If you want to say it's micro,
it's not just
I
about
agree with
size,
you.
it's about complexity.
Okay, who doesn't have what's not complex about the smaller brain, and who had it, and when did when
let's
we
look
ever
at the
taste
early
it and
humans.
observe
Let's say like Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo Neanderthals.
inferred,
No,
brother.
not
All of that-
Neanderthals. Neanderthals are actually smarter than we thought.
Yeah, they're just humans,
These
that's why.
early humans could barely make tools, didn't have a language. Fast
You're
forward, I
inferring-
don't know,
hold on.
300,000 years, and now we have
I don't
humans able
want to. I'm not trying to interrupt you. I just want to get to the evidence. That's why I stopped you earlier and said that's testable and observable. That's not inferred. You're literally inferring all of this now. There's no way for me to test and observe in this. You're just literally saying that these bones that we see in the dirt couldn't do this thing that I believe that we can do now. That I can't test and observe that. I have to go off your inference off of that. That's why I said testable and observable information gain, not claiming that these bones used to be part human, proto-human, and they couldn't do these certain things. There's no way that I can test that. I
Well,
literally just have to go off what you said.
Why is it not acceptable for you to see that we don't find any civilizations when these early humans were there? They didn't even make civilizations yet. They lived in small groups in a cave.
I'm going
maybe.
with your inference. That's all you have, brother. I need evidence, please.
Do you want me
Everything
to
you're
look
bringing
up
up
an
now, I
article
just
for
have
you?
to trust you. No, bring me something that I can test and observe and not just believe that these proto-humans, A, B, C, and D, because like we already talked about Neanderthal. Neanderthal is just regular humans. They made
They were not
instruments. They
regular
buried their dead. What's different about them than us? They made
Number one-
instruments. They played music. They buried their dead. They had culture. They believed in a religion. They're humans. They had anatomical difference from us, meaning that they were a shorter and stockier, but they're still humans. They're just like a specific tribe that goes off into its own, and you have trait isolation. Like you have in African tribes, you might have a specific African tribe that gets really, really tall, and the NBA used to go recruit for those individuals. They're not humans. They're still humans. They just had a trait that got isolated. No different than Neanderthal. They had traits that got isolated, but they're still human. Matter of fact, we still have DNA. Now I'm just contending with Google. Bronco, welcome back.
Oh, what's up, dude?
What's up?
Sorry, I mean, this guy got me like all over the place just because he mentioned something of kind of like what y'all are talking about now, but I know that we know that there was a civilization that existed that we can't find human remains of, but we knew that they were existed. So like right now I'm looking it up, it's because I can't really remember their names right now. And then it kind of goes along with the point that you were making. So like I'm currently like going on my laptop trying to remember what civilization that was.
Yeah. Going through this. All right. Ham, I appreciate it. I've been doing this now for about 3 hours. So listen, man, the reason why I do this is one, because I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians. I want to show them that what the Bible says is literally true and scientifically accurate. If
The flood was not
question,
real.
guys, come
Like,
up.
do you know how big Noah's Ark would have to be to have two of every single animal on it?
Why would I have to have two of every single animal?
That's what the story says. It has two
It
of
says
every
he took
single
fish
animal.
on the ark? What Bible are you
No.
reading? Okay, well, that's not every single two of every animal then, is it, Einstein?
Well, still, they have two of every
Hold on,
land
man.
animal.
We gotta. What kind of animals? We gotta be very specific, because when you come up and make a
Every
claim like
land
the
animal.
Bible is silly, does it say every land animal, or does it say the ones that breathe through their nostrils, have the breath of life in their nostrils?
I don't remember.
So those.
I haven't read the Bible
Okay.
in years.
So how many animals was on the ark?
Most likely, every single land animal that wasn't able to swim for that long of a period, for that long of a time.
So the animals that had the breath of life in them. Okay, we'll concede those land animals. How many animals had to be on the ark? Have you done the study? Do you know what the
There would
study
have to be
is?
two of every single animal because they would have to breed and repopulate.
That's great. So I'm going to ask it again. Please don't. I just want you to answer it. Do you know? It's okay to say no if you don't. I can tell you. Do you know the number that would have to be on the ark?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the answer, but let's be consistent here. Do you think that's a problem for you saying that it couldn't happen? How can you say that it couldn't happen and you don't know the answer to this? Before I would say that something is impossible, I think I would look at it a little bit. There's an entire scientific study on this called baryometry. Okay, it's the study of the original kinds, if you will. Like, for example, a lion and a tiger are the same kind. Noah did not have to take a lion and a tiger both on the ark because they can interbreed. You can get speciation once the animals get off the ark. In other words, I wouldn't have to bring all of the dogs in the world on Noah's ark. I would only have to take 2 wolf kinds on the ark. They could breed into the dogs once they got off the ark. That's microevolution, right? So I would only have to take 1 of the cow kinds. They could diverse into the many different cows that we have today. 1 of the cat kinds, because they could diversify into many of the different cats that we have today. So the number, if you add, because it says 6 of the unclean, 2 of the clean, if you put all of those together, it was anywhere from, on the low end to about 6,000 animals, on the high end to about 20,000. So 6,000 and 20,000 adolescent animals. You don't got to bring adults on there because we already concede that their mission is when they get off the ark is to reproduce. So you got adolescent animals. Let's go on the high end and say 20,000. You mean 20,000 animals couldn't fit on an ark that was long as a football field, 3 buses wide and 5 stories tall? It's pretty easy, actually.
I still feel like that might just be
Can
a
I give you
little bit
something
too small
that
because
will
it's
also kind of
20,000
support your
animals, some of which are pretty big in size.
But
And you, have
there's-
each,
if you've-
and you likely have each individual room for the animals as there's predator and prey.
Well, there you
Time
go.
out. Can I take this one real quick, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah, let's see what you got, man. Go ahead.
Before Noah's Ark, there was nothing was carnivore. Everything was vegetarian. Before the ark, everything was vegetarian, so therefore they would not eat each other. After the flood is whenever God said, now you can eat the animals of the land, and then they will fear you for it. So beforehand, everything was vegetarian, so there was no reason to separate them because they weren't trying to massacre each other. It's because they were all one alike of each other.
You got to pick a battle, man, because you're trying to say that dinosaurs existed at that
Hey,
time.
hold on.
and you
Let's not even get
clearly
into the
have
word
examples
dinosaur.
of
Hold on,
carnivores.
Hold on, brother.
in the Bible.
I'm
If
picking
everything
this
was
battle, and I'm
vegetarian
doing a
before
pretty good
Noah's Ark,
job to
how
show
is
you that
there
dinosaurs
dinosaurs
didn't live
milling
there.
with
And also, the word
fossils
dinosaur
milling
didn't
years
enter
ago?
the dictionary until 1814. Before then, they were called dragons. So let's go ahead and then
All
get
right.
into that whole historical standpoint of it
Give me
too.
a
Hold
fucking
on,
break, man.
hold
Stop
on,
watching
hold
Game
on,
of
hold on a
Thrones.
second. Hold on a second. I want to stay right here because when you're 100% right, Bronco, 100% right, and I see people in the comments and then my man talking about, you can say you don't believe it, but you can't say the Bible doesn't teach it. He is right to say. So if your contention is, because we were on Noah's Ark, that he couldn't put predators and prey together, you have been refuted. Now, if you're going to say that predators, that you don't believe that, then I could show you historical examples like Little Tyke, which is an actual lion that lived relatively recent in the past, where a zoo owner had a lion that was born that was a vegetarian and refused to eat meat its entire life. They actually put out an article in an attempt to try to get Little Tyke to eat meat because it was so hard for them in an effort to when you feed the animals at the zoo, you have to have one animal that has a special diet. It's very time consuming.
My
right?
guy, one outlier doesn't solve the whole mystery.
You
My guy,
can't like
which
expect
argument
every
are you?
single
Which
type, like the
argument
two
are you
tigers that
going
went on
with?
Noah's Ark.
This
They're
is
all
so funny.
just
You guys
animals that
have
don't act
such
normal.
you have so much faith that when you say it couldn't be possible, and then I say, how about this? And you go, well, that's just an outlier. Which argument are you going with? It couldn't happen or it's an outlier?
It's an outlier, but is it the dominant trait of that creature? No.
Okay.
But you,
And
So
we
it
never
can
said
happen.
it wasn't
y'all had the
possible
I've seen
for a
listen. I've seen
vegetarian
videos
Hold on.
of
to
people
be on
swimming with
Noah's
Hold
Ark.
yeah,
on.
but then y'all had the
Everybody
argument
talking at
saying
one
that
time,
fossils
guys.
are
Nobody
millions
hear
of
nothing.
years old. Like that's
Hold
that's
on.
insane to think.
So I've already demolished the whole dinosaur thing. I don't want to go back to that because I've already got you to concede that they're finding DNA. So if you want to then have just by faith that they're still millions of years old, then go enjoy it. I can't help you out. I've already laid down the science. You have no refutation for that. Sorry, but you're not doing good on that. Now you can say this one lion is an outlier. That's fine. You can say it's an outlier, but I can show you. And the rest of what evidence do you have that it always ate meat, or that these animals ate meat always? You going to go with the shapes of their teeth?
Yeah, why would a carnivore have teeth like that? Why would they have enzymes to break down proteins if they're going
Ask
to
the
be
fruit.
herbivores?
Sure. Well, that's a micro. Getting an enzyme you can get that from your diet, right? But ask the fruit bat why it has really sharp teeth today. It eats nothing but fruit. You reckon it knows that it's supposed to do that, or if it's just like an outlier and has really sharp teeth? How about the panda bear that eats bamboo exclusively and it has really sharp teeth? Maybe somebody should tell it that it's supposed to be a meat eater. How about the water deer, the Chinese water deer? It's a deer that has two fanged teeth that hang down out of its mouth. Maybe somebody needs to tell it, hey, bro, you're a deer. You shouldn't have these teeth. Or if you're going to have these teeth, maybe you should go start eating meat. Maybe
All right,
somebody
so then
should
why
tell
do
it.
humans, with your thinking, why do some humans, not some, all of us have tailbones, but some people actually grow tails? Why is that?
If you're going with an argument from vestigial structure, so let me answer your question to begin with. Why people have tailbones is because they're anchor points for your pelvic wall. You need those bones. You can live without them, sure, but that doesn't mean you don't need them. They're anchor points for your pelvic wall. If you don't think you need it, then have yours removed and see if you can still enjoy the sexual pleasures of life. You can't, because those are anchor points for those reproductive organs. Secondly, even if I was to grant you they're vestigial, that's losing information, not gaining it. And please give me an example where somebody's growing a tail. Don't give me the example of the kid in India that has a skin tag, right? A skin tag is not a tail. A tail is a tail. So I need to see where people are growing tails, not
And
skin
that person
tags.
would also be
I
just
really
an
wish I had
outlier.
enough
He
people to
wouldn't
search
be
this
the
shit up.
entire population, just like earlier you said, right?
So people are not growing tails. I don't know where you got that from. There is people that are born with like these elongated skin tags that have like membranes and stuff, but it's just skin tags. Come on, bro. Yes, he did.
No, he didn't. He said, why do people have tailbones if they don't have tails or something like that?
And then he said,
never
people are
said
growing
people
tails.
have tails. People have been growing tails.
What'd you, Hammy, did you not say people were growing tails?
I'm
Let's
looking
be
at an
honest, 'cause
article right now, and there's a kid.
I know,
who
but I
grew
just wanna
18
make sure that-
centimeter tail. It's not a skin
All
tag.
right, so, okay, so you are making that claim then, right?
It's
Okay,
not a
I
skin
did
tag.
not know
Yes,
he was
did.
saying the kid.
Okay, so
the
now,
kid's
wait.
skin tag was a tail.
All right, so Shu, I need you to figure out. It's okay to say you were wrong because you were wrong.
I am
He
wrong.
did make that claim. Thank you.
I am
All
wrong.
right,
I'm sorry.
So show me where this. No problem. Show me where this. What are you saying? A guy grew a tail. Where's this at?
18 centimeters. It's not a skin tag.
What is it? Does it have bone and muscle? It's a tail. Give me the information so I can look this up.
Hold on a second. I'm reading.
It's the kid in India, right? That has a tag. It's skin. Every other situation across the world, these are literally removed by a rubber band in any other place in the world. But because it's in India, they let this kid continue to have it so that it would continue to grow because he is seen as an incarnation of the monkey god over there. I'm not being condescending or mean or anything. That's literally what happened. This kid has grown with this skin tag that sticks off his back. And because it's anywhere else, you would remove it. But because they haven't removed it, of course, it's skin, so it's going to continue to grow. That's not a tail, though.
But I don't understand why we're going so deep into his point when earlier your point on a one supposed outlier is false, but now he's pulling up a one outlier on his standpoint. Now all of a sudden it's true. That's what I can't stand about normal people that try to bring science into situations is because, okay, if we do that, try to go into faith or something or whatever, but they try to explain something that they can't fully explain themselves, then they're right, but we're still wrong. That's what I can't. That's what I can't stand about.
Well, that's a
people like
part
that.
about a debate. You're going to try and prove each other wrong.
Well, I do. I got you, and I've allowed it to move on. But the refutation was about the animals eating meat, and now we got off into skin tags and tails.
Yeah, that's
but
what
my man Bronco actually did
bring it back.
He refuted you on. I got you. He refuted you on. Again, you can say you don't believe it, Shu, but I would like to get back on topic here because that's where we were at. So you said the animals were carnivores, and Shu did refute you on that. Now you can say you don't believe it, but the Bible clearly does teach that.
I just personally don't believe it because there's been animals that have been carnivores for millions of years or whatever.
Hey, Shaw, can I ask you one question so I kind of can understand you as a person real quick? Can I ask you one question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, how many years of study in multiple religions and multiple forms of science and in antiquities have you done so far?
I have been forced religion in my life for like 13 years.
Okay,
so
forced
far.
religion, but outside of that, so like you would say you was an atheist, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how many years of study through other religions have you done so far in order to become an atheist?
I didn't care to study other religions because it already sounds stupid.
All right.
A magic man
So
in the
let's stop
sky.
right there real quick.
A magic
Let's
man in the
stop right
sky
there
that
real
has
quick.
always been
Let's
there.
stop right there real
Suddenly
quick,
spawns
because
in
any
Earth and all
true
these other planets
atheist-
that you're never going to use.
But hold on, but listen to this. I'm not meaning this in a disrespectful way. This is for me just trying to educate you and stuff like that. Any other true atheist will look at you right now and say, okay, that doesn't make you an atheist. That makes you stupid.
What? An
Because an
atheist is someone
atheist,
who
a true
does not
have went
believe
and did
in any
research.
religions.
No, because an atheist went and did research, went through scientific facts, went through other religions, so
No,
forth.
no,
They
you
came
can
to the
stop right there,
conclusion
Bronco. It
that
kind of
there is
sounds like
no
he's
other
agnostic.
supernatural
Bronco,
fact
you're
at
just
that point.
stupid for saying that. An
No, it
atheist
sounds
is
like
someone who does
not
not
stupid.
personally
Hold
believe
on.
in any other
All right.
religion.
All right, hold on
I
a
just
second.
find all
So-
religions stupid. Because
That's real Christian of you to
this
call him
God has a
stupid for
big
thinking
plan,
different.
why does he make a 5-year-old kid with leukemia die?
He didn't call you stupid, guys. Come
I'm
on.
sorry, I know.
You gotta listen. I know, but now I'm answering him. He didn't call you stupid. He said atheists would call you stupid. He did not call you stupid.
So to
Secondly,
me, he
and
sounds
it's okay, we
agnostic,
can.
not atheist.
Okay, well, hold on, because I want
He
to
just
jump in
said
on
he
this,
was
man, because I
atheist, so we're
love this
going
stuff.
based off of what he said
So
he is.
yeah, so when you say stuff like the condescending stuff like Sky Daddy, and then you turn around and say, I believe I come from a rock, I'll take Sky Daddy every day of the week, brother. I think which one's, so it's not really insulting to me. Sky Daddy is still more plausible than rock.
What?
It's something that you said earlier, Sean, but this is the point that we're trying to make. This is
Yeah,
the point that we're trying to make
I
to
believe
you
I
right
come
now.
from Sky Daddy. You believe you come from a rock. I think Sky Daddy is still more plausible than rock.
Me personally, I think that you're young and you still have a lot of figuring out what you actually are. And right now, you heard the term atheist and think, okay, that's
Right
perfect
now,
for what
bro.
I am.
I've been an atheist for like 4 years.
Okay, but an atheist goes through years of study, years and years of study through different religions, through different facts, through different everything to come to the conclusion of what they are.
That's not
Then
true.
all of a sudden, then they
That's
become
not
an
true.
atheist. Yes, it is.
That's
So
not
how?
true. Someone could just have
So how
no
can you
faith
become
and
something
not
that
believe
you
in
have
anything. They
never
don't have to
did
study
research on
to
to
know they
become
don't believe in
something?
something. If they don't feel it in
Well,
their
they
heart,
can. They can. I would just say that. Here's what I would say with Bronco. I think it's an overarching statement, but I would agree that you need to do some research if you're going to pick a religion. Like, so here's my thing, right? I grew up in Christianity, but then when I got older, I started asking myself, do I believe in Christianity because my parents told me I should believe, or is this actually legit? So I wanted to look at a scientific method that I could do for myself, because here's the reasonable thing. If God did exist and he did it the way that he said he would do it, then those individuals who witnessed that would tell those other individuals, and it would be passed down. Eventually, if you saw God right now in flesh, just like they saw Jesus, then you would demand that your kids, and you would teach them this religion. So it would not be. It's a false statement to say just because your parents believed it, therefore you're going to do it, because it still could be true. Like I said, if you saw God and you knew it was God, then clearly you would teach your children that religion, and they would grow up and they would try to teach their grandchildren the same children. So we got to step out from ourselves and say, okay, can we actually put this to the test? So I think that's really what he's asking. So if you went to atheism, did you just go to it willy-nilly, or did you look at it and study it? Because I was a Christian because I grew up in it. But then when I got a little bit older, I said, okay, if God is real, then I should be able to put him to the test, a reasonable test. I'm not going to say, I heard an atheist say one time, if God doesn't appear in the next 5 seconds, he's not God. Ha, ha, ha. That's not reasonable, right? I wouldn't expect a God to play like a little puppy and come at my command. But what I can do is look at the accusations, or the predictions, if you will, that these religions make. And I can determine if those predictions are true, and then I can pick that religion. I can give you several examples, like we're talking about the flood. All of the things that we've talked about so far, which fits better, guys? Now, y'all have been in here for a little while now. Which of all of these evidence, which fits better?
But
evolution or the flood model?
But the one little point that I want to point out to Sean is that
It's not Sean, it's Shaw.
Shaw. I apologize. That's my fault. But what I want to point to you is that the definition of an atheist is a person who doesn't believe in the existence of God. But if you go to the actual true definition of a God, which means that's a blanket term over all gods whenever it comes to a God. So that means if you don't believe in one God, you don't believe in the rest at all either. But it also says, which affirms the reality and the divine, and often seeks to demonstrate its existence. So they seek to find out if this being's existence is real or not. So that means you would have to go through study to find out if this person's existence actually happened, yes or no. So
okay, I'll explain
atheist
a little bit on why I'm an
some sort of
atheist.
study
So
to become an atheist.
The reason why I became an atheist, my family is very big. It is split between oh my god, I can't speak. Judaism, Christians, and
Christianity.
Catholics.
Hold on,
Catholic
Bronco,
is in Christianity, but go ahead.
Hold on,
can I
Bronco, let him
speak?
talk.
Can I speak? Thank
Go ahead,
you.
brother.
So I have a big family. It's split between Christians, Judas, and Catholics. I've tried out all of those. They just never made personal sense to me. I have multiple friends that are Muslim. It never made sense to me. So, and I looked a little bit into other religions, and they just really never made sense to me. So I personally felt like I just don't believe in God. I don't want to, like, devote my whole life to these rules. And yes, I'll be honest, if I die and God is real and I get sent to hell or whatever, I will regret it. But just right now, I've experienced multiple religions and it just never made sense to me.
Well, there's that. I would say get rid of the religions, man, and come to Jesus.
Exactly. That's
Right?
literally what I was about to say. Literally.
Yeah, get rid of the get rid of the religious, man, and just come to Jesus, dude. You don't you should, but I'm not saying you don't got to knock down the church's door every 5 minutes and try to get in there. Now we should assemble ourselves and study and things like this, but you don't have to. The fun thing about, or the good thing about my religion is that I don't have to change who I am in an effort to God accepts me for who I am. It's because of him that I change, right? So I'm not going to be the same because of him. I don't have to change to meet him. In other words, he'll meet me where I'm at, and then once he does, then I change because of that. So
If he accepts you for who you are, why does he have a certain set of rules? And if you break them, you're sinful and you can get sent to hell.
Because
Well, we don't
whenever
go-
he accepted
Well,
us.
hold on.
I'm sorry. Go
Well,
ahead.
no problem. So when you say that we break his rules and get sent to hell, we're going to go to hell for not just breaking his rules, but for breaking any rule, not just one of them. So you're not going to go to hell for not breaking rules, because you're going to break rules all the time. I'm not going to hell because of what Jesus did. That's the difference in Christianity that people don't see. It's really, really, really a hard concept for people to understand, but it's really easy to say. I'm not going to heaven by keeping any law or doing anything good or not being a homosexual or not being a murderer or I'm not going to hell because I didn't do any of those things. I'm going to heaven because of what he did. End of story, bottom line, write it down. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have rules and that we shouldn't apply those rules to our life. And that doesn't mean that if we don't break his rules that we can't fall into problems here on the earth, right? God says that if I look at a woman and lust after her in my heart, I've committed adultery. Even if I commit adultery, and let's just say hypothetically, I love my wife, I wouldn't cheat on her, but let's just say hypothetically for a moment, I cheat on my wife, okay? I'm still going to heaven. I haven't lost my salvation off of that. I've committed a sin, but I'm still going to heaven. And I can still face the consequences of that sin here on this earth. I can ruin my life. I can ruin my family. I can ruin my reputation. I can catch an STD, whatever. There's innumerable amounts of problems that I can get into off of sin. But it's not God's fault, and I'm not losing my salvation. I'm still going to heaven.
But the difference is whenever someone intentionally sins in order to spite God, that's whenever it becomes an issue. If someone sins, it's because whenever it comes down to someone sinning, like he just said, he did this or whatever, yada, 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 he wasn't doing it in the intentional standards to go against God, where people actually start getting judged to the realms of, they're being subjugated to hellfire or whatever you want to say. It's whenever someone intentionally does that just because they say, okay, I don't believe in God and I don't believe what he says, so this is not going to infect me.
Hold on, Bronco.
That's the difference.
Hold on, man. Hold on. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I want to make sure that when I'm sharing Christ that we're staying on that, because I don't do the you can lose your salvation stuff up here. I think most of the sin that we commit is willful sin, period. Even if I was to cheat on my wife, I still knew it was a sin and I chose to do it. So the sin would still be willful, but I don't want to confuse.
No. I'm talking about the people that totally deny and go against God and recognize that they're going against God, and then they do those things. I'm not saying that once you have I get what you're saying, what you're trying to say, but
I got you.
What I'm talking about that side.
I got you, man. Appreciate you. So here's what I'm trying to do. Sean. I know I want to put an N on it. Sorry. Shaw. So, like I said, Jesus will meet you where you're at, man. Mm-hmm. You will change. if you actually accept Jesus into your heart, that's the part that I can't see. It's so easy to get into heaven. It's not, the Bible never says it's hard. It just says the road is narrow and few go. It doesn't say that it's hard, because it's not. Literally all you have to do is believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ came to this earth, died for your sins, and rose again on the third day. If you believe that, that's it. End of story, bottom line, you're saved. The part that I can't see is your heart. That's the part that produces the fruit. So the Bible says they'll be known by their fruits. So it's not enough just to go to church and say the words. There's going to be plenty of people that go to church, that live the religious life, that you would think is a good person, that's going to stand before God and he is going to say, I never knew you. Depart from me. So all you really have to do is just actually believe in your heart. Now, if you actually believe, then that will cause a change in you, and you will produce better fruit. You will produce good fruit. But I don't get on this stage because I want to keep my salvation. I get on this stage I want to share Christ with people, and then I will be rewarded off of these things in heaven, right? Like you can get rewards based off of the good things you do here, but you're still going. You're still going to heaven.
It's hard for me to accept Jesus, because for like 2 years on end, I was super religious. I made sure I was sinning as least as I could, and nothing good really ever happened to me. I was still having rough times left and right. My parents got divorced, and it felt like if I was trying to do all these good things and my parents were, why did nothing good ever come?
There you go. That's the part that I'm trying to show you, man. You have such a work-based mind, and this is the way the world thinks. It's called a karma mindset. If I do good, good things are going to happen. If I do bad, bad things are going to happen. If you become a Christian, you're probably going to have a lot more bad things happen to you, because the devil's going to be after you, bro. It's just the way that it is.
God puts his strongest warriors through the toughest times, brother.
Yeah, man. But God, you're going to be tested and go through fire, right? But you have a mindset of a work-based thing. If I do A, B, C, and D, then I expect E, F, G, and H, right? If I do good, then good things should happen to me. And that's just not what we should expect. Jesus, you're not going to be able to be good enough to go to heaven.
Can I speak to him about Job after you're done?
Yeah, 1 second, man. I do appreciate it, man, but I'm just trying to share Christ with somebody, man. I don't need the interruptions right now, especially when I'm trying to share Christ. This is the whole purpose of my ministry.
And I hope I'm not trying to like change your religion aspects. I'm just trying to share what I personally believe. And I'm glad you're sharing Christ in your personal religion. I'm so happy people express themselves.
Here's my thing, dude. If you reject Christ, that's on you. But I do want you to understand what Christianity is before you reject it, because, no disrespect, by the way you're talking, it sounds like you don't know what it is, right? Because you have a work-based mindset, meaning that if I do A, B, C, and D, I should get E, F, G, and H, and it's not work-based. You cannot be good enough to get into heaven. The Bible says our good works are like filthy rags at his feet. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get rewarded. You can be rewarded in heaven off of your good deeds, but you're not going to get there based off of your good deeds. You're only going to get there by believing in him. Now, here's my thing. For me, I go through the scientific field called textual criticism. For me, people not believing in Christ is so unscientific for me, because they'll say, oh, well, most people that at least have a reasonable amount of knowledge will say, okay, Jesus existed. It was this first century man who claimed to be the Messiah, and then he was unalived. I believe the Jesus walking the earth part. I just don't believe the divinity part. But where are they getting that information? The same place that they're getting the information that Jesus walked this earth is identically the same place that said that he rose from the dead. There's never been one archaeological discovery that has refuted the Bible, but there has been numerous archaeological discoveries. I'm doing this study now to make my next video. If you go to my page right now, I do these less than 3-minute clips with AI, and because it's like visual learning, and it's about can we trust the reliability of the Gospels? Because the Gospels are the ones that you learn that Jesus rose from the dead, and if Jesus rose from the dead, then he is God. So that's what we got to determine. So can we trust those Gospels? And the answer is clearly yes. They have so many different things in them that we can actually put to a test. Like, for example, Luke names things. Luke is the individual that you want to send to investigate. The Bible literally, a lot of people don't read this, so they don't know. Luke is an investigator. A man named Theophilus, or his rank or his title, whatever it was, it says to Theophilus, sent Luke. So this man named Theophilus is hearing about this Christianity that's popping up. So he says, Luke, you're a doctor. I want you to go investigate these. I'm sending you as an investigator to tell me about this stuff, and you give me an unbiased opinion. So Luke literally states in his letter, Luke, and in Acts, he literally writes these to a man named Theophilus. It's a letter. We know it now as a book, but he writes it as a letter, and he says, I'm writing you this, Theophilus, so that you can be assured of this, this, and this, and this. And he literally tells Theophilus, he's not an eyewitness. Luke is gathering testimony from eyewitnesses. So can we trust that the eyewitnesses are actually are later Christians backdating this in an effort to add validity to the Bible, or is it true? Well, Luke names people that match historically. So we know that Luke gets the names right. But it's not only the names, it's the distances. He says, we walked a 3 days journey from place A to place B. Well, they can match that. And so, okay, this is actually a 3 days journey from place A to place B. So it's not, this isn't somebody just making this stuff up. But he also mentions in passing, Luke mentions a man named, I'm going to mess it up, but Geoas, I believe his name is, or something like that. He mentions that he works for Herod, and he's like this man named Geoas, he works for Herod, and his wife helped Jesus over here in this situation. But because Luke was a meticulous note writer, he mentioned the guy's or the woman's husband, Geoas, and he said that his rank was he worked as a steward in Herod's household. So they didn't realize back then that we have a scientific field that we have today of matching names. We can match names and say this name is originated here. Like, for example, my name is William. We can say that originated with Bill. You know what I mean? That's why people can say this name means that and whatever. This guy's name was a Nabatean in origin. So scholars go, wait a minute, this is a Nabatean name, and it's saying that he has rank in the house of a Galilean. How does a Nabatean have rank in the house of a Galilean? They wouldn't give this guy rank because these are different people groups. How are they there? This name is not common to the area. So people would say, this is Luke or later Christians adding in names in an effort to make the Bible look better. But they don't realize they're just adding in names. So when we can look at it now, we think they're adding in names. Except Josephus actually gives us the story and doesn't mean to. In textual criticism, this is called an undesigned coincidence. When you have two different individuals that tell a story that accidentally confirm each other without knowing it. So Josephus says that Herod actually made a treaty with the Nabateans and they intermarried with each other. So if back then, if you made a treaty with somebody, you married their daughter, so that would pretty much guarantee you wouldn't go to war with them because you wouldn't want to go to war with your wife's people, right? So they would marry. And that's exactly what happened, and that's why we find the name of a Nabatean in Luke's account. So this adds validity that Luke was actually an eyewitness and gathering real testimony. And if he was gathering eyewitness real testimony, and we can look back through the science of textual criticism and show that this is the evidence leans very strongly that this is true, then we have to understand that these individuals are making this claim that Jesus rose from the dead, and we have to, even if you say I don't want to agree with it, you have to address that. And this is one of the biggest problems in the field of textual criticism, that people like Bart Ehrman and all these other people, they'll admit that the disciples had to see something, but they just don't want to cross the line that he saw Jesus raised from the dead. But clearly these individuals saw Jesus rise from the dead, which means that Jesus is God, man.
Well, if Jesus is God, and then in the Bible it says Jesus is the Son of God, what really explains that, And
Yeah,
then
that's a
would that
Trinitarian.
technically mean there was no God before Jesus?
Right. So you're asking real deep questions now. That's a Trinitarian argument. So we believe that there's one God in three distinct persons. Now, if you're asking me to explain that, there's no way that I could, because I'm literally trying to explain God, and that he couldn't fit inside my 3-pound brain. Right? He's more than I can explain. But if I was trying to give an analogy, I would say it like this: God does things in threes. We have a body and a soul and a conscious, a spirit. They're separate, but one. My consciousness is what my soul and my body have in it. It's my spirit. My spirit has my soul and body in it. When I unalive, my body stays here, but my soul goes here. I'm not two different people. I'm still one person. It's just now my consciousness is in, my spirit is with my soul that goes to heaven. And then at the end of time, Jesus said he's going to bring our bodies back up and then reunite us. That's like God. You have the Father, which is the soul. You have the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and then you have Jesus, which is the body. And then even in time, space, and matter, everything is a trinity. Time has past, present, future. Matter has solid, liquid, gas. Space has length, width, height. So, and you can't have one without the other. The moment you have one, you literally have all three. If you had matter but no space, where would you put it? If you had matter but no time, when would you put it? Shout out Ken Hovind. This is what he said. And it rings true. So kind of a long answer, but you asked me a really hard theological question right off the bat, is how do I explain God in the Trinity? Well, that's the best way that I can explain it. It's God. It's really not easy for me to explain. But when I look at the evidence all over the planet, it's just hard for me not to believe in God. So then which one do I go with? Well, I go with the Christian God, obviously, because it has the most evidence for it.
It's so nice hearing you argue, because you argue way different than like other Christians, where they just go completely based off the Bible, but you give pretty good arguments and like evidence to your arguments, I guess. Well, not evidence, but
Well, thanks,
that
man.
makes a lot of sense
I do
on
this.
how like you can perceive God and why you feel like Jesus is God.
Yeah, so a textual, I used to do just, I love the science stuff, so I do the field of, evolution and all this other stuff, and I love science. But I recently started getting off into this field of textual criticism, and I found that to be, you guys are going to hear my voice change because I got to unplug my mic and plug in my phone. But the field of textual criticism to me shows the validity of the Bible, right? I already knew that God was real through the science that I do with like evolution and stuff. It's just not reasonable for me to believe in evolution because there's no evidence for it. But then I decided, okay, which God's real? So then I started looking into textual criticism to see if the Bible is true. And there's never been an archaeological discovery that's disproven the Bible. In fact, it's been the other way around. They all show that what the Bible has said is true. They find cities, towns, they find ossuaries that line up to the same people's names, and the Bible is just so scientifically accurate, man. It's not now. We got to have a reasonable standard. So if something is classified as a miracle, then obviously I couldn't put that to a scientific test because it's literally classified as a miracle. But when the Bible says that God rained down fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah, and then I go to this place, and the Bible is very clear about where the location of Sodom and Gomorrah was at, and then when they go over there and they're able to pull the sulfur balls out of the side of the rocks, that shows me something happened, and it adds validity to the Bible, man.
I have like one question. Why do you think evolution is not real when we've like uncovered fossils and like these artifacts and stuff, and how I guess they've kind of proven the age of the earth,
Well, I don't argue the age of the earth. I do believe that it's less than 10,000, but I've been very honest. My belief system and what I don't know how old the earth is because the Bible doesn't say. It does say, it does say how old the lineage is. So the lineage is 6,000. But my argument is this: when Adam was in the garden, there was no need for him to count years. He's going to live forever. He hasn't sinned. Why is he? What is he? If you go to heaven and you live forever, what are you going to be like? Hey, this is my 6,212th birthday. Nobody cares, right? Why do you care about time? So it says Adam was 120 when Seth was born, but it doesn't tell us when like his original children were born, Cain and Abel, right? And we know that they were having children because God said, be fruitful and multiply. So my point is this: when did they start counting Adam's age? In my opinion, you don't need to count until degradation starts, until after he sinned. So there is room for Adam to have lived in the garden for a long time without it counting towards the 120 years old when he begot Seth.
Mm-hmm.
I still personally believe that it's still less than 10,000 because I don't think he would have, you got a population issue because he would have had children. Their children would have had children and children and children. Eventually somebody would have ate the fruit before them, I would imagine. Yeah. But long story short, I don't know the age of the earth because the Bible doesn't say. I do believe personally it's less than 10,000, but we got to be intellectually honest. When people use the fossil record, there's no way that it could possibly count as evidence for evolution because it's literally just shapes and assumptions. They're literally just looking at the shapes of the bones, and then they're going, well, this bone looks like that bone, so therefore that bone had to come from this bone. And that's just the worst science ever. You would have to prove that bone had children and had children that lived. Now, evolutionists will fight you tooth and nail over this because they need this. This is the best evidence that they have, is being able to line these things up. You have a whale in the ocean. A whale is a mammal, but according to them, fish got out, walked on land, and then became mammals. So how do you have a fish in the ocean that's a mammal? So they had to have the mammals go back into the water. So then they start looking for the evidence of Ambulocetus, which is they start looking for evidence of animals that walked on the land that they assumed went back into the whale. So they literally line animals up and say, okay, this one looks like its legs are getting smaller and it's got like it's closest to the teeth and the head of a whale, so therefore it's the ancestor. That's literally what they do. They line these things up by their shapes, and then they make assumptions based off of them. And a lot of that stuff is just crazy pseudoscience.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And let me just show you this right here. I got this fun little thing I do. It's not condescending in any way, but I promise you, this is exactly how they do shapes and assumptions. Usually I get pinged on my face, on my thing for turning my camera around, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it around so you guys can see this right here, even if it hits me. I'm getting towards the end of my life, but I love doing this. Why won't my camera? What do they do? Move it? Where's the camera at? Well, they moved the camera button. I can't turn it around.
If you want, you can
There it goes.
There you go.
They moved it. All right, so here is a spoon, right? I was in my backyard the other day and I dug a hole, and I come across many different layers because hydrologic sorting happens. And at the bottom layer, I dug a little bit sideways and I found this spoon.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And it's at the bottom, so clearly it's the oldest. So I started looking in layers above it, and I found this spork. Now you can see here that this is clearly the same kind of animal, right?
Yeah.
Still the same kind. And you can see that it's rounded over here and rounded over here, but we're starting to see these divots in here. And it's not like the spoon anymore, but now it's starting to get these divots. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is evolution, but I'm not quite there yet. So I looked in the next layer and I found this. Boom. Clearly the same kind of animal, but we can see that it's getting skinnier on this side, and then the cuts are starting to actually go down deeper. So this helped confirm my theory. I was like, wow, this is absolutely evolution. And then at the very top layer, I found this fork. Again, clearly the same animal, but now it has an extra prong and the grooves are all the way down. So this is clear evidence of evolution. Now that's me being a little bit semantic, but obviously I just done, the spoon was designed to be the spoon. The spork, the salad fork, and the fork were all designed. None of them evolved. But literally all I did was line them up by their shapes, and then I added my assumptions to them. And this is exactly what people do with the fossil record. If you've ever seen Planet Peterson, I've debated him once, not like a formal debate, but him come on my channel, and then I went back on his for a couple of minutes. Not really long, but really one time we had a solid engagement. This is 99% of his stuff is the fossil record, because he lines these things up by their shapes and goes, look, the seal has this kind of teeth and it looks closer to this one, so therefore that one went into that one. That's not science. Lining things up because they look alike and then saying that one came from that one is definitely not science.
Mm-hmm. And then I have another question. Do you like believe in God's plan or whatever people say?
Well, what do you mean?
You know, people will say, oh, God did this because it's a part of God's plan. Or like he does this to certain people because of it. It's a part of his plan.
No. So my brother was up here earlier. He wanted to talk to you about Job, and he was right. The only problem was I feel like he's stepping on me a little bit when I was trying to share Christ with you, but he's not wrong. We just have a different way we share Christ. But he was wanting to bring up the book of Job. And the reason why he's wanting to bring up the book of Job is because the book of Job shows us that God is in charge. He knows everything, and then he allows things to happen, but it's not the same as him doing it, right? Satan is bad, and Satan does bad stuff. So God allows bad things to happen, but it's not him doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But then if God is all good and all loving, why does he let this bad stuff happen? Like the devil take a 5-year-old kid with cancer.
Yeah, that's a result of the fall. So if God stepped in every 5 minutes to do something, then obviously you who wouldn't go with that, right? He wants you to choose him. Right? God wants you to choose him. And of course you'd choose him if he made everything perfect and nice and good. But Newton's second law of thermodynamics is because of the fall. And eventually there will be a time where there will not be any cancer or bad things happen, or everybody will live forever in perfect harmony. That's going to be the end. But as it sits right now, we're in this stage of being able, we have to choose him willingly upon our own free will.
Yeah.
And that's because of the fall, bad things happen. And, unfortunately, I can say this now, my wife had cancer. She beat it, to the glory of God. Thank you. But she beat cancer.
I can't talk. I'm sorry. But, congrats.
Thank you, man. But even if she didn't, and I'm saying this so I don't have to use anybody else, God uses everything for his glory. It doesn't mean he caused it. So, and it wouldn't be part of his will. His will is not that we would perish or have problems. His will is that we'll choose him and go to heaven.
Well, thank you for letting me up here and give me a chance to debate. Sorry that I messed up some of my words. I'm running really low on sleep.
Bro.
And
you're good, brother. Listen, man.
You're the best Christian I've ever debated with, because you've given good arguments. You haven't just used the Bible, and you actually have very common sense points.
Amen.
So I wish you the best luck in life, and I hope you make it into heaven. So yeah.
I'm going there. I hope you make it in heaven. I want to see you there, brother. Listen, we don't got to do this on a public stage or anything, man. But if you have any questions, man, send me a message.
All right.
And and I would love to lead you back to Christ.
All right. Well, goodbye. Thank you again, and goodbye, chat. Even if some of you told him to kick me off stage, I wish you all well.
All right, man. God bless. All right, guys. Y'all pray for that young man. Y'all definitely pray for that young man. He is he can listen. He can follow the argument. People like that have an open mind and that can contend with arguments and that can see the logic. I really do believe that young man will come to Christ. I think he is a logical thinker, and I think he left Christianity because he didn't. Unfortunately, people treat it like a religion to where you have to, do something, say something, be something, and they don't actually know Jesus. They're in a religion, and they don't know Jesus. So y'all pray for that young man. I really do. I really do think we can get him. I really do. That's why I do this right here. Is amazing conversation, and I've got hopes. I've got hopes for him. I just hope that he sees Christ before it's too late. If anyone else in the comments are the same way, I'm getting ready to close it out. I gotta bounce out of here. Same thing. If you're wanting, send me a private message. We don't got to do it. I don't debate over text. I'm not going to debate you on text. I have a platform, so a lot of people send me a lot of messages wanting to debate me over text. I'm not a text tough guy. I'm a face-to-face tough guy. We can have a conversation face-to-face. I don't have time to debate text everybody. But if you want to talk about Christ more, you have legitimate questions about Christianity, send me a message and let me know you're not wanting debate, that you're actually looking into the religion, and I'll get back in touch with you to try to answer the questions the best way that I can. But I appreciate it. God bless. And as always, Mr. Allen. Oh, wait, let me say this. To everyone that gives the stickers, I forgot to say this. I put it right back in the ministry. I do appreciate you guys supporting, giving me the stickers, putting some money in the plate. I never asked for it, but sometimes I don't have the ability to stop what I'm doing. If I'm in the middle of the debate, if I'm in the middle of sharing Christ, I don't have time to stop and say thank you for giving the gift. But I want to take the time to say thank you afterwards. So I appreciate it. God bless. And as always, Mr. Allen, you get the last words.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it today. I think you made some good points. And I would have loved to tell Mr. Shaw my story. I'm 68 years old, if he's still listening, that I've had a lot of sickness and everything through my life, which I've told you about it, William, and I've always had Jesus there. I always have.
Amen, brother. All right, guys, appreciate it.
I do want to tell you this, William. When you got up and walked out, it looked like you was walking right there beside the ark.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, man.
Well,
I
God
appreciate
bless
it.
you.
God bless, Mr.
Keep
Allen.
going strong.